All right, so it says that we are live. Hello. On over there.
Hey, Miss Nettie the poet. All is well.
Is we
Hello,
doing
hello,
this?
hello.
Is we doing this? I think we doing this.
We're doing it.
Yes, here we are. So I see us. Remember, I was telling you earlier that I have to, for some reason, I have to, edit my privacy to make it public so that everybody can see.
Okay.
Cause only, and now I'm on. So you go ahead and make it public, and all of our panelists, if you're listening in, go ahead and start sharing on your platforms. It is ready to go. I didn't want to take too much time. But hey, this is the online conference that we do every year. This is our third annual year for what is the word for today.
Hey, yes.
Hey, and then we have Sister Yvonne. She is my sis. I love her so much. I'm so glad that she was able to, stand in because I usually have Leek Monroe. I want to give him a shout out. And he just wasn't able to do it this season, but that's all right. We've got other seasons to come. And I'm so privileged to be hosting with this young lady here. I love her so much. We've done quite a few things together, huh?
Yes, we have.
Wow. And I think I started when you asked me to be on your platform to share my story. And then it just kind of,
Absolutely.
you see how you just kind of like influenced, you know? Your influence is it's influencing. So, yeah, she is no stranger to the platform. She's been on They Took My Choice Away Survivor Series. And she is just a powerhouse, and you'll see for yourself. I don't want to take too much time because we have bios to read. So let me get to the bios. I'm gonna introduce you to our host, my co-host, the lovely, the only Yvonne McCoy. Bear with me because I gotta get to my messenger. Mm. You see what happens?
It's all right.
Mm-mm. Girl, you let the kids play on your tablet and then they take off apps. Oh my. Mm-mm-mm. Well, you want to go ahead and read mine? Since you're
Absolutely.
introducing me.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
Mhm.
Well. I want to introduce this awesome young lady by the name of Nettie Long Poetry, who became a poetry artist 7 years ago when a family trauma changed the course of her life forever. Nettie Long's past experiences come with some heavy regrets. Heartbreaks, childhood traumas, many things that were meant to destroy her life, but God had another plan. Nettie Long networks with local business for outreach purposes to express and heal from depression, to telling her life story in ways that commands change within yourself as you listen to how relatable her poetry is. She touches the heart of women, single mothers, and teens. Most are drawn to her poetry piece, Depression and Deep Within, and many reach out to her for advice. And she mentors a small following of youth that come out of juvenile detention centers and programs for troubled youth. What makes Nettie Long so special is her unique sound as she incorporates music and singing with her poetry. She is often seen accompanied by dancers Mike Mike Bambry and April Watson.
Mhm.
Nettie Long books for private venture venues, women conferences. She opens up for other artists, radio show hosts, venues, and church functions. Nettie Long has been featured in The List, When Women Speak, The Light Radio with Raymond Tyler, Poetry Met comedy show with IMD Daryl,
Mm.
recording artist Angela Burton's birthday bash at Kelsey's, Atlantic City Renaissance with Doug Fresh, Clementon, New Jersey, Black Lives Matter rally as a guest speaker, the Diamond Black Out radio show, and the list goes on and on and on. Nettie Long is on all social media platforms. I introduce to some and present to others my friend, a sexual assault advocate, none other than Nettie Long. You got it,
Well,
girl.
that was beautiful, girl. But I am still having some trouble with Messenger. Um, uh,
It's okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to do this. You don't
mm,
even have to introduce me, Nettie. I can tell a little bit about myself. If you
oh
can't find
my
my introduction,
goodness.
it's fine. We're going to make this thing work.
Well, that's not fair.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man. Oh, I'm sorry, Yvonne. Yeah, I apologize.
No apology needed.
Mm, 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 mm. Okay. Yvonne McCoy, at the very tender age of 8, Yvonne was sexually molested by a trusted family member. Adding to the trauma, she was raped by a total stranger at merely at 6 years old. These events have broken others, but not Yvonne. She is a survivor, and her achievements since these horrific, life altering events have taken place over 4 decades ago. She, conf- she has confirmed this declaration. It is through God's unwavering love that Yvonne has shared her experiences with others. She has earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration, volunteered and worked full time for the WOAR, which is Women Organized Against Rape, is employed by the DHS, right, as an education liaison, works on the executive board of the Empowerment Zone, and is a member of the Redeemed for a Cause, while forming her own nonprofit, LASA, Life After Sexual Assault. However, Yvonne considers her greatest achievement in life is to be the mother of 7 children, whom are often loving referred to by as the 7 wonders of her world, and grandmother of 6, wow, who felt her heart, who melts her heart when they refer to her as doll baby. All of Yvonne's thoughts, actions, and efforts since that day, although at one time the memories were buried deep in her subconscious, and and have one goal in common, which is to educate, inspire, encourage, and empower all who have been affected by the atrocities that were meant to leave them powerless and victimized. Man, I love your bio. Yvonne knows that without the strength and support of her mother, who is now supporting from heaven's gates, and her unconditional faith in God that was instilled in her as a child, and she would be just another victim, just another statistic, but instead she is Yvonne McCoy, a survivor. Woo!
Thank you.
That gave me chills. Oh, that gave me chills. So we're just gonna keep on going. We want to introduce our next guest, and I'll just put him on the screen for us to read his bio. Sis, you're gonna have to read the bios. I'm trying to get to. I'll try to jump in as soon as I can.
Okay.
All right. So here's the layout. Here's our um, next guest. So, there we are. Onto the stage.
Good
Okay.
afternoon, Martin. How are you?
Good on
Martin,
you, Vaughn.
Martin.
Nettie, hi.
Hi, Mr. Moore. How are you?
Good on you.
Wonderful. We just wanted
Cool.
that opportunity so everybody could match up the name to, the bio. And Sister Vaughn, go ahead, take it away.
Right now, I want to introduce our listening audience, all of you that are part of this conference. I want you to meet this gentleman by the name of Martin Pedler. He's a survivor, coach, an author, an international speaker. Having survived sexual assault as a child, Martin turned to addiction to cope with life. It wasn't until his mid-40s that he was able to recover from abuse. Look at God. Look at God. Since hearing the stories of over 200 men in Oprah Winfrey's show, Martin made it his life goal to tell his story to as many men as he could in order to give them permission to tell their stories and likewise begin healing journeys. Martin founded Matrix Men in 2011 and have supported men all over the world behind their journey to healing. Read his book, the best-selling book, The Pumpkin Van, available on Amazon and Kindle. Again, I want to introduce to some and present to others no other than this survivor, Mr. Martin. How are you? How are you? How are you?
I'm good in you, Vaughn. My word. I mean, you're the survivor, 7 kids. Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I've got a 3-year-old boy. He's like more energy than I can handle. But yeah, kudos to you, Mum. Amazing, amazing.
We're going to go on to the next guest. Thank you so much for all the way from South Africa, guys. I don't even remember. Girl, you have to bear with me. Thought this would go a whole lot quicker. Oh my. Where's everybody at? All right, go ahead, Miss Savon. Go to the next one, and we're going to. I gotta find our guest. There we go.
Who's our next guest, Nettie?
Peace. We did you. We did ours. All right, we're just gonna go to our therapist. Add to the stage. Here we go.
Good evening, Rich. Good evening, Rich. Good evening, Rich. Audience, you are in for a treat. I tell you, on this evening, you're in for a treat on this afternoon. I want to tell you a little bit about our next panelist, none other than Rich Griffiths. He is a licensed clinical and mental health counselor based in North Carolina, alongside his wife, who is also a licensed therapist. He owns Crowned Life Counseling, PLLC, which operates out of 2 locations, Gladsboro, North Carolina. Together they are dedicated, my God, to fostering a supportive environment where clients can pursue healing and growth. Rich has a particular passion for assisting men in overcoming past traumas and achieving their fullest potential, understanding the unique pressure men face in concealing their mental struggles to maintain a facade of strength. Rich strives to offer a safe and welcoming place where men can express themselves authentically and feel genuinely supported. In addition to his counseling work, Rich has recently authored The Journey Within, a prayer and reflection journal for men aimed at aiding men in their inner and spiritual journeys. Beyond this counseling practice, Rich brings over a decade, look at that, over a decade of experience in graphic design and marketing.
Right.
adding a creative dimension to his professional skill set. Rich is not only committed to his clients' mental health, but also engages in creative pursuits that complement his counseling approach. Audience, on this afternoon, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to some and to present to others none other than Rich Griffiths.
You're doing
I
great,
love
Yvonne. Y'all don't need me. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
I
The energy.
know. She's just a full ball of energy, ain't
Yeah.
she?
Yes, I love
Oh
that.
my. Well, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. The world will appreciate it all the way from South Africa. You better know it.
Ooh.
I just thank every panelist that is here. Because y'all didn't have to be here. Y'all didn't have to be here, but they are here for you. We
Yes.
are here for you. And for such a time as this, for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we not playing. We want everybody to be healthy. We want everybody to be whole. And how you start that first is how you feel about you on the inside. So let's clean some of that up. Hopefully, what we have to say, the words that we have to share, will minister to you in a way that commands change.
Y'all know about technical challenges. If it can happen, what's that? Murphy's Law? If it can
Yes.
happen, it will happen. But stay tuned. You're in for a treat on today. I
Absolutely.
promise you. While Nettie's adjusting and getting her volume back, we're just happy. Now we're moving on to our next panelist. Our next panelist on this afternoon. This is our third annual online conference. Nettie, so at this point, we're going to introduce our next panelist. Good afternoon, sir. Oh, can't hear me? I don't know what's going on. Are you able to hear me now? You can hear me? Okay. You know what? We're not giving no credit to Murphy's Law. We ain't giving Murphy's Law. Nettie, I think it's you. I think we can't hear you, but I think I can be heard. I can be heard. So I'm going to move on while Nettie addresses those challenges. Murphy Law, you got no power over here. You will not mess up over here. We're going to keep moving. That's what we're going to do. Even if it means, nope, still can't hear you, Nettie. Even if it cannot hear you, nope. Even if it means that we got to go off script. Even if it means we just got to play this thing as it comes, we will not give event to Murphy's Law. We will not give event to Satan. We're going to keep it moving. So while Nettie continues to address her challenges, I'm going to move right ahead and I'm going to introduce Daquan. Nettie's still working on some things. And you all send up a prayer. You all send up a prayer for this third online conference. I'm not the one who usually co-hosts with her, so she's a little bit nervous. We're learning each other in this environment, but we got a word, y'all, a word that's going to heal, a word that's going to set free, a word that's going to deliver, a word that's going to strengthen, a word that's going to empower, a word that's going to encourage. And one of the words on this afternoon is going to come from none other than Daquan. Daquan, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
How are you
Good
doing?
afternoon.
Can I just say you guys are doing amazing.
Mr. Daquan is a survivor. I love it. I love it. I love it. A male survivor, an advocate, a co-author, a model, a content creator, an events and customer service manager for I Am Man Incorporated. I love it. Apparel or apparel. They took my choice away. Survivor Series podcast. A man who wears many hats and who advocates for all. We are honored. We are privileged. And we are excited. I'm excited to have a man of your stature, a man of your knowledge, a man of your content, our man on today with the word to be able to share with us on today. Oh God, have a word on today. I think Nettie is still addressing some challenges. So we're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep talking. We're going to make just a little bit of small talk while we wait for Nettie to come back, because I'm co-hosting. This is Nettie's thing. And if anybody knows about Nettie, she's called Nettie the Poet. And on her Facebook page, there she is. Nettie, we've introduced Daquan, and we're just waiting for you. Let's see if we can hear you, Nettie. Can't hear you. No, can't hear you. Can't hear you. No. We're going to make it work, Nettie. We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. We thank God for our audience. We thank God for those that are here, that are listening. We're thanking God for your patience as you bear with us as we go through our go-through. We're going to make it work. Nettie is still readjusting and getting some things together behind the scene. But we've got some awesome panelists, some as far as South Africa. And as we have read some of the bios, you can tell that these are individuals who are well-versed in this topic. This topic, which is sexual assault, a topic which is hushed. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody sees the elephant in the room, but everybody's pretending, there's no elephant. Everything is fine. But if the truth be told, the elephant's in the room. Come on, Nettie, talk to it.
How about now?
Here you go. I know where it works. I don't know about you, but I know where it works. Come on, Nettie. We have introduced Daquan, and now we're awaiting the introduction of our last panelist.
All right now. Last
I'm loving it. I love it when the kinks happen. I love it. It gives us an opportunity to grow, to rise above, to persevere, because that's what it is to be a sexual assault survivor. This is just a highlight on what a sexual assault survivor has to go through. We've got to persevere. We've got to overcome. We've got to withstand and rise above the challenges. So this is what we're doing on this afternoon.
This is what we
our next panelist.
Yeah, so Robert is not on, but we're going to go ahead. Daquan, go ahead and stay on with us. Represent for your boy.
Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Okay, everything sounds good. Let me just say this: you guys are doing an amazing job. Like no, look, the errors come. Let me just say this: like anybody doing first of all, it takes bravery and resilience to do something like this seriously.
Amen.
Because I guess it's just a tough factor. Firstly, just even if it's online, whether it was in person. Here's Robert right here. Let me see.
Is he on?
He was texting me. I think he's gonna be on in a minute. Yep.
Okay.
So I want to just say I appreciate you guys for doing this. And let me just say this, speaking from my personal experience. Nettie, I want to say thank you. Let me say this, guys, for people that's watching. Like, I want to be responsible. And say that I appreciate you, because you have been so patient. You hear me? Like, no, seriously, guys, for the ones that know what she's doing right now, and this awesome platform, she was making sure she let us know ahead of time, making sure she's reaching out, making sure she's sending things out. Very thorough. And I was in the middle of moving and relocating and trying to adjust. And she was so patient, even to the fact of trying to do my bio tour and was late, and she made sure she put that thing together, and let me just say this, thank you, because I hate talking about myself.
Most survivors do.
I'm like when I get in these platforms, I love and thank God for the privilege of being able to do this. But every single time we get ready to go somewhere, it's like, hey, we thank you guys for what you guys are doing, but hey, you got a bio. I'm like, and it's been years, so I'm working on it. I promise to make sure.
Amen.
But look, I'm grateful for anything, but I want to just say I'm praying for just further success for you. I'm praying that God just establish you, that whatever you need concerning business and all these different things, I'm praying that God does that for you, because I think you're doing a great job. And I love that the platform is for everyone. You
That's
know, we
right.
do need separation sometimes when for women and then also for men, but I thank you for opening this platform up for everybody. So I think you're doing an amazing job. I want to just say that, you know,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. So thank you for your time. You know, it's so it's noted. God sees it, you know. And I just want to, I, I couldn't even thank you guys enough. So I was just telling Sister Yvonne how this was like the calmness that I've been, and so that's all glory to God, and that's also has to do with experience. You know, if we practice a thing, you know what I mean, you get better at it, and so.
Absolutely.
I can't help, the interference with, online, but hey, that's what it is. All right. So let's I'm gonna let you wrap it up with Robert's bio, and then we're gonna go from there.
All righty. While we await Robert, he's actually coming in, but we want to tell you a little bit about our last panelist on this afternoon. I keep saying evening, but it's afternoon. Robert Marshall. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Sit tight, because y'all about to be in for a treat right here. Robert Marshall, esteemed founder of I Am Man, the Survivors Circle, and director of Lake County Community Resource Center, which stands as a beacon of hope and empowerment in men's wellness and empowerment. As one of the top empowerment speakers. Come on, look who we have. One of the top empowerment speakers. Robert is feverishly, my goodness, committed to inspiring over 1 million people throughout with his powerful speeches, training and coaching, drawing on his journey of resilience and triumph. His history marked by academic challenges, the void of fatherlessness, the scars of bullying, the pain of sexual trauma echoes in the hearts of many. My goodness, my goodness. Despite these obstacles, Robert's resilience shines through. He conquered these trials and and excelled academically, graduating in time from an alternative high school, followed by an impressive pursuit of higher education, earning multiple degrees in educational leadership. At the core of Robert's work is a profound profession for guiding boys and men toward healing,
That's right.
personal growth, and overcoming the barriers set by adverse childhood, experiencing socioeconomic limitations, emotional hurdles, and traumatic experiences. He is a firm believer in the innate potential of every individual to achieve total wholeness. I love it. I love it. I love it. Total wholeness and unlock their inner greatness. As a leading expert, author, potential, as a leading expert, author, and one of the foremost male empowerment speakers in the field of education and wellness, Robert Marshall continues to be a pivotal figure in the quest for empowering men and boys to rise above their challenges and embrace their newness of life. We thank God. Thank God for you, Robert. And soon you'll be able to meet him. We wanted to make sure that his bio was read, even though he's not quite gotten here yet. We want you to know who it is that's on the panel. We want you to understand that these are some qualified individuals. These individuals have experienced and understand the trauma of rape and sexual assault, and they have a word to share. Come on, Nettie, back to you.
And that's what this conference is for. It is called What is the Word for Today? And our first guest is none other than Martin. Let me put him on. I'm gonna get better at this, I tell you. Let me take myself off. Add to the stage.
There we go.
I think I got you. Hold on. Remove.
Hi, Yvonne. So I'm guessing you just want me to start talking. So yeah, I mean, I've been introduced. My name is Martin. I'm from South Africa. I'm a survivor. I was a victim of sexual abuse, sexual assault from the age of 5 to the age of 19. And the word they gave me today is peace. And well, when we talk about peace, I mean, it's kind of a weird topic when you come to speaking about sexual assault, in a sense. Peace. How do you get this inner peace? Well, I can tell you, for me, it was the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. I mean, it was the Lord who who finally brought everything to a head for me. I was kind of mid-40s, and I was dealing with all this trauma that had happened to me, and I was like starting to realize that my life was a hell of a mess. Addiction, sex addiction, porn addiction, alcoholism, all that sort of stuff. And I remember looking up at the roof or the ceiling, and you know how when things are always going wrong, we always tend to blame God. We're like, God, you allowed this to happen. And I looked up at the roof and I was like, God, why did you let this happen to me? I was just a little kid, kind of lost out of my childhood. And in an instant, this word, this sentence popped into my head that said, if it hadn't happened to you, who would go on to help others? And that was the weirdest thing. I sat there, I was stunned. I was like, that's not an answer to my question. I want to know why you let this happen to me. But the flip side of that was that in an instant, God kind of wiped away my past, gave me hope, gave me a future. And in that, he gave me peace. And we need to understand this concept of peace. And I think what comes with peace is forgiveness. And, and when I talk about forgiveness, I often say, listen, guys, let's not talk about forgiveness as the first step to healing, because in my mind, it's not. We need to go through the phases of anger and the phases of healing and recovery from trauma, and the kind of anger and self-blame and disillusionment and, all these phases there. And then one of the last steps was forgiveness. When I got to a point in my life, I realized that if I didn't forgive those people that hurt me, and there were quite a few, believe me, at the time I was in an abusive relationship with my ex-wife as well. She was incredibly, when most of the time was verbally and mentally and emotionally abusive, but also got physical with me. And I had to forgive all these people. The ex-wife was the last one that I decided to forgive. But I had to go through a long list of people whom I had to forgive in order to find that peace in my life again. And I tell you why it's important, right? Because there's enough research that has gone into the fact that people who hold on to anger, angst, and unforgiveness tend to develop cancers, depression, suicidality, addiction, all that sort of stuff. So it's for your own good that you learn to forgive people. It's for your own good, for your own physical and mental well-being, that you just let it go when you're ready for it. I'm not saying you must force it. I'm not saying, they're like a lot of Christian counsels will go, well, the first thing you have to do is forgive. And I'm going like, no, you need to work through the process. You need to get angry with the people. You need to hate the people. You need to cry. And then there's the self-blame. And then you go like, it's my fault. I tried this. And you go through all these phases. And that's what healing is all about. is just processing, talking about it, finding somebody you can trust, finding somebody that can eventually lead you on that path to peace. And for me, that path to peace was God. You know, I got born again, if you want to call it that, in 1991. Was it? Yeah, 91. It was about the August, no, September, October, somewhere around there. And I was on fire. And for 5 years, I devoted myself. And I didn't realize that I devoted myself not to God, but to the church. I kind of served this church. And eventually, the pastor got divorced and everything changed. And I got so disillusioned. But not with the church. I got disillusioned with God. And I kind of turned my back on God. And for the longest time, in fact, until 2012, I kind of really was angry at God. I was I wasn't healthy, you know. And in 2012, so it was about 2010 when God showed me that, when he said to me, if it hadn't happened to you, who would go on to help others? It was then, and it took me another 2 years to get to a place where I was like, okay, I need to go back to church. And I met an amazing American pastor here in South Africa, just down the road from me, Chad. He comes from California, and he's a pastor in a church there in Costa Mesa, I think it is. I'm not too sure, but it's called Calvary Chapel. Man, I'd never been to a church like that before in my life. I mean, I was there, and they were teaching through the Bible. Wow, you know, line by line, word by word. I mean, it was just chapter by chapter, book by book. I mean, in 8 years, we went from Genesis to Revelation on a Wednesday and a Sunday. And I learned so much. It was incredible. And Chad was just an amazing guy. It was like really, I was shaken when he had to move back to the States. But yeah, I mean, it took me that time, and it took me, I would say, you know, in terms of recovery, if you really devote yourself to it, you can change your life in 6 months. Really, when you put in the effort, you can go from being dysfunctional, because that's the first sign that, you know, things are going wrong in your life. Everything kind of falls apart, and everything just goes wrong. Anything that can go wrong just does go wrong. And you're always like, oh, why me? Why do I keep getting into bad relationships? Oh, man, I keep meeting the wrong people. Oh, man. And everything just seems to be going wrong. And then you start remembering things, and they start popping into your head. And then you start dealing with them. Hopefully, you start dealing with them. And it's difficult. It's painful. And it takes you a good 6 months if you really push at it. And it takes you a good 6 months if you really, really work hard. And remember, back in 2010, 2011, when I was doing this work, I was alone, man. You guys in the States, you had the Oprah Winfrey Show with 200 men. You had Tyler Perry talking about these things. You had an organization called Male Survivors. 1 in 6 was just starting up. And there's a lot of stuff happening around in the space. But here on the southern tip of Africa, there was nothing. I mean, nada, right? Nothing. It was me and me alone. And I still remember in those days we had dial-up internet, right? So you had to click on it, was like connect, and these weird noises. And I would connect to malesurvivor.org, and I would read stories. I was voracious, man. I just read. I just learned. I ordered books. I bought books. I just went through. I think one of the first ones I got was Mike Lew's, what was that one called? It'll come to me. Mike Lew's book. Great book for survivors, especially male survivors. The next one I bought was one called Evicting the Perpetrator, which is a book by a guy, Ken Singer. And I read in there, and it said, if you're a therapist and you've been through all the diagnoses and you just can't nail it down to something concrete, you know, why the person is behaving the way that they behave. It says, an incumbent upon you as a professional to ask the question, tell us about your first childhood experience, sexual experience. And that kind of stuck with me. And I eventually contacted Ken, and I asked him if I think he's the late Ken Singer now. And he was like, "What? You reading my book?" And man, I learned so much reading in those days. It was crazy. And then moved on to helping people and again trying to bring peace, trying to bring serenity to people's lives, because man, when that I'm a survivor of sexual abuse or rape, just when that implodes your life, it's hard, man. I understand the difficulties that you go through. I was a mess. 5 suicide attempts, guys. I mean, I kid you not. The first time I was 16 when I tried to kill myself. And I can remember I was riding a little motorbike and heading towards the concrete pillar on a bridge. And I thought if I could just smash into this fast enough, I'll be dead. It will all be over. I don't have to worry about this world anymore. I was in the deepest, darkest of depressions. And the funny thing is, it was one of my abuser's words that came into my head as I was trying to attempt suicide 5 times, 4 times with the pistol in my mouth. And it was that one of my abuser's voices that popped into my head. Said, "Oh, you'll probably stuff this up too." And immediately, I just kind of got this vision of me in the hospital with all these pipes and tubes coming out of my body, and me not being able to move or say a word, but I could hear, and I was cognitive of everything around me. And these nurses and doctors were just abusing me. They were just like doing horrible things to me, and that would pull me out of it, you know. And it just shows you God has a plan for each one of us. You know, He stopped me from committing suicide because He has a plan for my life, you know. And we just go through and try our best. And I just want to reach out to you guys and say, listen, don't be afraid. Right here on this show, you got Nettie, you got the Juan. I hope I pronounced that right. And you got, there's a Deshaun, and there's Robert, there's Rich, there's Yvonne. You got myself. I mean, amazing people that are just sitting here waiting. Listen, come talk to us. We'll support you. We'll help you through this. We'll give you advice. We'll hold your hand through it, and do it. Man, I know it's painful for like 6 months, and then it's just your life transforms. You start making better decisions when it comes to relationships. You start making better decisions when it comes to jobs and doing things. You start putting in place these amazing things called boundaries that we never had before, because we're such people pleasers. We're just trying to make everybody happy. I'm just trying to make everybody happy. You know, I love people. I love doing things for people. And everybody abuses you. They just like re-abuse you, you know. So now you're learning, you're growing, and you start putting in place these boundaries, and your life just transforms completely. And it just brings with it such incredible peace, such amazing, amazing peace. And I kind of see, and when I sat thinking about when they gave me the word for the day, peace, I was like, what? Peace and survivors don't go together. They just don't. It's just because there's so many survivors that are out there that just don't have peace. They live in fear. They live in doubt. They think so badly of themselves. You know what? My survivors always give them this little exercise, and I say to them, guys, go home, look in the mirror, look deeply into your own eyes, like, right? And say, hey, I love you. You're an amazing guy. And you know what? Most of them can't do that. And that's sad. It's so sad. You know, the Lord said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, the first thing we've got to do, of course, is love God above all things, right? And then He says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I've thought about this, and this is the one area where my old pastor and I disagree. Chad and I, we just like butted heads. And we had great discussions about this. And he says, no, loving yourself too much is like vanity. And I'm going like, no, man. If you've come from a place where you didn't get that love, if you've come from a place where people mistreated you for most of your life. I mean, I was taught at 5 years old that sex was love, right? How do I love somebody when every time I met a lady, I was like, if you love me, you're going to sleep with me, right? It doesn't work, right? So we need to get to this place where we learn to love ourselves, right? And it was a long journey for me. It was a truly long, you know what? I met a mate of mine the other day. It's like, well, we've become great friends, right? His name is Clint, and I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning this. And I said to him, Clint, so what's your story? He says, man, I've been clean and sober for 16 years. I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Well done. It's like me too. I'm also cruising up on the 16-year mark. And I said, how did it work for you? He says, you know what? I woke up one night, he says, and I saw Jesus in my room, 2 a.m. in the morning. He was like, what? And Jesus looked at him and said, you got to stop this nonsense now. No more woman, no more drugs, no more drink. Stop. You're going to serve me. And he says, I woke up the next morning, Martin. He says, I never had a craving. I never again wanted to sleep around. He said, I never wanted to do any of those things. He said, I just had this peace came into my life. And I was like, that's not fair, man. That's not fair. I've had to fight and claw and like struggle and just, oh man, do everything day by day, step by step. It's been hard, but you know what? We get to a point, and my journey is different to his journey. God has a different plan for me than he does for Clint, right? And everybody has these different things that happen in their lives, all for a purpose. Why? Because I can take guys through the struggles. I can empathize with them. I can understand them, and I know that it sometimes takes hard work to get to that place where you feel the peace, where you feel the comfort in your life. And it's possible, you know. And I mean, I deal with a lot of guys. Hey, my journey was Jesus, man. My journey was like, he really held my hand. When I look back on my life and I go, I should have been dead there, I should have been dead there, I should have been dead there, should have been dead there. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. And that time I should have been dead there too. Oh, right. And that time I did something stupid. I should have been dead there too. And that time I drove drunk and crashed my car. Could have been dead there. I could have. But, you know, the hand of God was on my life all along. And I could see it when I look back on my life now because, hey, man, I'm old. When I look back on my life now and I go, wow, he really has just kept me safe. Must be for a purpose, right? So, other people's journeys are different. Some people have been abused by priests and by people in the church, youth ministers, that sort of thing. So you, like me, turned around and blamed God, right? Just remember that there's evil in this world too. And as much as God cries every time he sees one of his children getting hurt, he doesn't want them to get hurt, right? The problem is that we gave away this earth to sin right in the beginning, and it happens. And sadly, we can see it just escalating as we're going along day by day. In my country, I just see it, the rape crisis and the GBV crisis is just getting out of hand, man. I think we're the second highest in the world. And then I'm comparing ourselves to like weird little countries in South of America or something like that. So we're dealing with a lot here. And as we're going along, I mean, I'm starting to notice, you know, in South Africa, more boys are sexually abused than girls every year. And the majority of them are raped by women. So, guys, you know, it happens. It's not just you. You're not a freak. You're not alone. You're not the only one. And when you get to that place where you realize that you're not on this journey alone, there are millions and millions and millions and millions of men who've been raped by women, by men, by priests, by teachers, the list goes on. And we need to start getting to this point where we understand people, it's not about gender, it's about humans, bad humans, right? It's not a gender problem, it's a human problem. And we've got to get to that place where we realize that anybody can be a victim, anybody can be a perpetrator. And it's happening more and more. I mean, I was speaking to a girl the other day. She said to me, Martin, I, for the longest time, couldn't say anything because I was so embarrassed because I was raped as a little girl by a woman. And I'm going like, that's how I felt. You know, and the thing is, when we set aside all these issues, we actually find that we have more in common than we have against each other. So who's creating all this gender war? It's Satan, man. It's just evil that's creating all of this nonsense. So guys, yeah, I just encourage you to look at your life and go, do I have peace in my life? Do I have that peace that surpasses all understanding? Do I have just that tranquility that I so desperately need in my life? And if you don't, reach out. Reach out. There are so many people out there that want to support you and help you. Reach out. The help is available. You are not alone. You are not a freak. You're not the only one this is happening to. There's a whole community of amazing people out there waiting to hold your hand and help you. And don't forget your boundaries. If somebody says, hey, you know what, I'll support you, but start sending me nude pics. No. That time is over, guys. Don't fall into those traps. Find reliable, good people that come highly recommended and get that support. Do the work. You're worth it. Jesus loves you.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, Martin, because a lot of people who are viewing this today or will probably catch the replay, they don't have peace. A lot of times our traumas really pick away at our mental thoughts, even in subconsciously. So I thank you for your take on peace. And I know that wasn't probably no easy task. But I know that at some point, every one of us who are here on as panelists have had to experience some sort of peace in order for us to be here today. And we're just trying to show you, the world, how what winning on the winning side looks like of a survivor. That we out here, you're out here. We're just learning from each other's experiences, and that's why we tell our story so that you can be a better you. Yvonne, what would you like to have on the take on peace?
Wow, that was a mouthful. And as you began to share, I was taking down notes. And as many times as I've heard your story, and I've heard bits and pieces of your story many times before, but every time that I hear it, I stand in awe. I stand in awe of who you are, what you've encountered, how you overcome, how you were able to reach a level of peace. And the thing that I think stood out most in my mind is when you said, peace, a survivor, a stone oxymoron. The two can never commingle, coexist. But you've showed us on today how it is possible for a survivor to reach the level of peace. And for that, I am grateful. Thank you so much.
I do want to add to that because he also said some things about forgiving,
Mhm.
right? And it's tied into your health. A lot of people are not forgiving, and they're also being vexed with all sorts of diseases that are almost incurable. So imagine what a level of forgiveness would do. How he said it was good for you. I really appreciated that. Um, and that it wasn't a gender problem, right? Anyone could be affected by this. Men or women, girls or boys. And it doesn't have to be, or it's not always the opposite sex either that is doing the abusing. So thank you for that awareness. And let's just be thank you for just being relatable, especially to my story.
Nettie, if
But
I can add just one more thing before
yes,
we leave. Another
yes.
thing that stood out to me is that obtaining peace takes work. That
Mm-hmm.
was one thing. And another thing that he said was, it's a process. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen overnight.
That's
My
right.
process for attaining peace will look different than your process. As a story you shared about the young man who said that he saw Jesus in the room, and the next day he had no longer felt the need or desire for certain things. And you felt like, oh my God, it's not fair, it's not fair. But it's a process, and everyone's process is different.
That's right.
But if you work it, it'll work for you by the design, plan, and will of God. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you,
All right.
guys. Thank you both, man. Amazing honor to be a part of this panel. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Made me think. You made me think.
All right. So without further ado, our next panelist, let me see the layout here. There's none other than Yvonne, but I am going to put her up instead of me. Lord have mercy. All
You'll
right.
get it now.
I'm gonna get it. Eventually, I'm gonna get it. That's why we need all these extra time. All right.
There it is. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Yvonne McCoy, and my word is worthy. And as you listened to Martin, as you listened to Martin as he was wrapping up the last portion of his conversation or his piece, he spoke about feeling worthy. That's my word. That's my word. The word that I want to share with you is worthy. For so long, I didn't feel worthy. For so long, I felt that there was no value to me, to my life, to my existence. For so long, I felt like there was no reason for me to even be here. And many of the things that Martin expressed about anger, questioning God, and lack of forgiveness are the same things that I too experienced. Why? Because I didn't feel worthy. At the age of 8, being sexually molested by a trusted, not just a family member, but a trusted family member. And then at the age of 14, the last Sunday in November, before my 15th birthday, 1975, standing on the corner of 22nd and Cambria while waiting for the 33 bus in front of Murray's Steak Market. Even though it was that many years ago, I still remember it as if it were yesterday. I remember many of the feelings that I felt, many of the thoughts that went through my mind. And they didn't just come in my mind and just vacate. There were years later before I felt any value to myself, to who I was. I felt like I had nothing to offer anyone and that no one could actually receive any good thing from me. I think a portion of the scripture, I forget what portion it says, is it any good thing in wherever that place was? Is there any good thing there? I often related that to myself. Is there any good thing in you? Is there any value in you? And then when I talk back to myself as being a young person, my answer would always be, of course not. You were molested at the age of 8. You were raped at the age of 14. How could there be any, oh God, how could there be any good thing in you? Of course not. There's no good in you. There's no value in you. There is no worth in you. Even God saw you and declared at a young age that you were worthless. And that's why he allowed what he allowed to happen to you. These are the thoughts of a 14-year-old. These are the thoughts and conversation of a 14-year-old. You're not worthy. You're tainted. You're no good for anything or anyone. So my word on today is worthy. Because now as a 63-year-old mother of 7 and doll baby of, 8 now, 8 grands and 1 great grand. I no longer feel that way. I realized today that what happened to me happened to me. It does not define me. It does not describe me. It does not speak as to who I am. I am worthy. You see, my whole attitude changes when I come to the realization and the understanding that what happened to me was nothing that I did, nothing that I brought on myself. There was nothing that I did that caused me to be in the position that I was in. I was coming home from church on my way home, still daytime. It was wintertime. The last Sunday in November, it was cold out. Had on a winter coat, scarf, hat, gloves, totally covered. But I fought with myself for years. Surely you must have glanced over and gave him the eye, Surely you must have sent some kind of thought to him saying, come on over. Surely you did something to invite him over. Surely you did. Come on, tell the truth. Surely you did. And for years, I struggled with that. For years, I fought that. And for years, I succumbed or subcame or whatever the word is to that mentality. I fell to that belief and that understanding that I had to. And as I race through my mind, the days, the hours, the years, I go back and I visit and I say, I must have. I had to have sent out some kind of signal. And because of that, I'm not worthy. But I've come to understand from that time to this, I am not responsible for what happened to me. Even if I had walked around with no clothes on, even if I had a drink, or even if I had indulged in some promiscuous activity, that did not cause or warrant my having been sexually assaulted. Sexual assault is always the fault and always on the shoulder of the perpetrator. I keep glancing off because there's some noise in the background and I'm hoping it's not interfering with the conversation on this afternoon. I thank God, to whom I give all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise for where I am today. And so often I want to say to anyone else who is going through what I've gone through, you have value. You have a worth. What happened to you happened to you, and you are not responsible for that. I am getting just a little bit off. Oh, the noise is distracting. It's a little distracting on the outside. But it is my hope that you have come to understand that what you've encountered, what you've gone through, what has happened to you was not your fault. No longer do I wear on my shoulders the blame and the shame that belongs to somebody else. So often I say that I don't know where my perpetrators are in part. But what I do to sort of encourage myself every time I tell my story, y'all, every time I'm able to share what happened to me, I am putting a nail in the coffin of my abusers. And by that I mean I quiet the voices in my head. I quiet their authority over me. I quiet their power over me. I quiet their strength over me. I quiet their power over me. I take back my power. Every time I tell my story, I'm taking a hammer and a nail and I'm closing the coffin in which their voices sometimes ring out from, even now, decades later. Every now and then, the voices of my perpetrator will ring out from the coffin, from the grave, and they'll try to suck me back in. But every time I tell my story, I become bolder, I become stronger, I become more encouraged, I become more empowered. Because when I tell my story, it's my hope that somebody else will gain hope and that they will come to understand, that they will come to realize, that they will come to believe that it was not their fault. And I always like to end whatever conversation I'm having as I get just a little bit closer to the screen, especially if we're online. If I'm not face to face with the individual, I try to get closer. and closer to the individual. Because what I want to do is I want to look them clear in the eye. I want them to see eye to eye. I want them to feel what I'm saying, not just hear it, but I want them to feel what I'm saying. It was not your fault. Back to you, Nettie. It was not your fault. Ah, it was not.
Ooh, girl. I thought you had some more time. I feel like you did, but wow. Sis, every time you share, um it ministers to me. Um you really know how to exhort and uplift and just you just a whole powerhouse in itself, but you really understand the word worthiness. Worthiness is how often we our thoughts will really play a part on how we feel about ourselves, and as survivors we tend to always take the blame, and that's what the enemy does. He really tries to trick us. He really tries to, because he can't really create nothing, but he uses people. He uses people to hurt us and
Mm,
make us believe that we've got no, like we can't trust anyone with this dirty secret. And because it's so dirty and because it hurt and because it's so, foul, you we really do have a hard time trying to express the very thing that happened to us. And so why we took on the blame, the guilt, you know, that's what the enemy was here for. He was designed. Everybody has a purpose, and he was designed to do that. Was to trick you into thinking that this was your fault, and. And so just know that those that are listening, it has never been your fault. I don't care
never,
who told it to you. I don't
never.
care if it was a father or a mother that told it to you that it was your fault. What did you do? Don't ever put the blame on you. That is not for you. So thank you, Miss Yvonne. Thank you, Miss Yvonne, for those words. I'm actually having a blackout over here. Yeah, all the power is out. So I don't know what's going on. I know I pay my bills. So I definitely have a blackout going on over here. So we're going to move right along. And next up is our therapist, Rich Griffith. Um, and I will put him out in just 1 second. Let me add him to the screen. Hey, we got a
Hello.
therapist on deck. We can't do conferences like this without a therapist. Come on now.
Yes.
So we will leave you to handle your word, which is
Discernment.
that's right.
All right. All right. Yeah. So my word is discernment, and this is the kicker with it. And I was telling one of my friends this. So I would say over the past couple of weeks, God has truly been dealing with me with the word discernment, like with discernment in general. So when Nettie and Yvonne sent the list out that gave us each our topic, and mine was discernment, I was like, okay, God, okay. So discernment, such a powerful word. And when most of us hear discernment, of course, we think of it from the spiritual lens, right? And for me, that's kind of where I come from it as well. But before I dive into my word, I have to share this because I feel like the Holy Spirit was tugging on my heart. So, of course, you all know I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for a couple of years now. My main focus is men, helping men, supporting men, men who are sexual abuse survivors, men who are just dealing with a ton of mental health things. I want to give men a safe space to be able to be themselves, to feel safe, to be able to use their voice. But before I get into my word, I have to share this. So when I got the message from Nettie about the conference, about being a part of it, I was like, awesome, sure. Of course, I'm still on board with it. But I was like, okay, but I want to make sure that I come from the aspect of an advocate, right? A person who supports, individuals dealing with abuse, mental health, supporting them. I'm not coming on here as a survivor myself, but I have to share this, and it's coming on the tail end of Yvonne's message about being worthy and empowerment through sharing our story, and recognizing that it wasn't our fault. So I would say about 2 years ago, I just randomly had this memory that came back to me as an adult. And it was a memory of a sexual assault that happened when I was a child. Now, I haven't really publicly shared this, so this is kind of like my first time officially talking about this. But at first, I was like, I mean, is this a made up dream? Like, am I just dreaming, or did this really happen? So I kind of sat with it for a little bit. I didn't really think on it much anymore. But then as time went on, and of course, being a therapist, I'm like, okay, what is this? So I eventually talked to my therapist about it. And I also talked to one of my friends who's also a survivor about it as well. And I eventually talked to my wife about it as well. And, they were very supportive of me. And what I realized is that sometimes when we have been abused, we have been assaulted, we have dealt with some level of trauma, that sometimes our mind has a way of blocking it out to where we don't remember it. Um, and so for me, I was like, oh my God, like I have to share this because I'm on this podcast or this interview with so many other wonderful individuals who are being open and transparent about their experiences. So I wanted to share just a little bit about mine. Sometimes you don't even feel worthy of honestly even sharing it, like because it wasn't necessarily a repeat thing, which I honestly don't even know if it was or wasn't because my mind just blocked it out. But I vividly remember the scene. I remember the individual. I remember like the setting. It was as though my mind took me right back to that moment. But I love that Yvonne said that it wasn't your fault. And so I'll hop into my word, but I had to be obedient to what God was tugging on my heart with. And, hopefully that empowers somebody who maybe has never shared their experience, or who maybe had a thought or a remembrance in their mind like I did. And they're like, did that really happen? Or am I just making this up? But yes, my word is discernment, 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 discernment. It is so important to have discernment. Um, and I'll come from the lens of a parent first. So as parents, right, like we want to protect our kids, we want to make sure our kids are good. And we know that we can't always be around our kids, right? And so what I've learned as a parent myself is that, when something is tugging in your mind, or you notice maybe even the smallest thing that may be off with your child, have a conversation with them. And when you have that conversation, of course, ease into it. But I think it's important for us as parents to be able to discern when something is just off with our kids, especially if their behavior has shifted, the way they are carrying themselves, anything has shifted. I think it's important to pay attention to those signs because it could be their subtle way or subliminal way of trying to get your attention or in letting you know that something is off. Um, from the many stories that I've heard of people who have dealt with abuse, who are survivors of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse. One of the things is that they felt as though nobody cared or nobody paid attention to them, and they were dealing with this abuse at the hands of somebody else. And that is a recurring thing that I hear so much, is that they felt like nobody caught the signs that they were struggling, or that something was off. And so I'm not saying that we should be hyper vigilant, because I think that sometimes can be, well, it is a trauma response. But I think, pay attention to your kids. If you're noticing that something is off, you know sort of pull them to the side and have a conversation with them about that. And again, this word of discernment. um, it's also important to note that, if you're noticing, just as much as you should be paying attention to signs with your children, if you're noticing that somebody that may be around, right? It could be a family member, it could be a family friend, a pastor. We've seen where so many people have dealt with abuse at the hands of multiple people. But discernment is also, being aware of these people as well, because, a lot of times abusers go unnoticed, because we think that, oh no, it couldn't be Reverend such and such, or it couldn't be uncle or auntie this or that. But auntie and uncle and pastor, are abusing someone. So, being able to even discern if a person's behavior just seems a little off. Again, I'm not saying that we have to be overly suspicious of everybody that our kids are around, but I think it is important to try to pay attention to certain telltale signs that something's just not right. If a person is just a little overly friendly with a child, especially a child that's not theirs, um, or it's just looking, for those signs, is just so important. And for people who have dealt with abuse, maybe you dealt with abuse as a child, right? And so now you're just, hyper aware. You might be fearful of going to certain settings or being around certain people because of what happened to you. First, I would like to say is that I don't want you to feel as though that because you were a victim, and you're a survivor now, that now you have to live your life in fear, because you don't. Like, you can have a healthy life. You can, have a family if you want to. You can, be able to do things that maybe you didn't think you could do because of what happened to you. But just being able to, again, discern a person's behavior. Something seems off, something doesn't seem right. You around a person and they just, something just makes you feel uncomfortable. Don't ignore those signs. I think sometimes we like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm very guilty of this. I try to see the best in everybody, and I know that sometimes that can work against me, because not everybody has your best interest at heart. And so just being able to, um, you know, use wise judgment with people that you have in your life, use wise judgment with places that you may go, just being, aware of the things, and paying attention. Like, as a believer, um, I like to believe, or I like to think that, God gives us all like a radar discernment, right? And sometimes we don't lean into it. Sometimes, again, we think that, oh, okay, um, it couldn't be, they couldn't do that, or they're, oh, I'm good. But no, like, I feel like if the Holy Spirit is giving you the signs, because I know for a fact that God a lot of times will give us signs. Now, that's not to say that, people who have dealt with abuse, or who have been raped, who have been molested, that they ignore the signs. Not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that, if you feel that there's a sign there, you pay attention to that. Don't brush it off as just nothing, because I do believe that, again, that could be God's way of trying to help you to see something that may be um, in your flesh that you're not able to see. And so when I was looking up discernment, I was like, okay, well, what does this word actually mean? And I found so many different definitions that all align, but one that stood out to me was that discernment is our ability to recognize truth from lies, good from evil, and God's will from our desires. And I felt like that definition encapsulated not only the spiritual side of what I feel discernment is, but also just like a practical sense of being able to discern, um, use discernment to as a form of protection. Um, because again, I do feel that, that discernment is a way that can keep us from, you know, getting in harm's way. Um, and so, as a therapist, when I'm working with individuals, and I'm there to support them, I'm there to be able to give them the tools and the wisdom to not only help them see themselves as a survivor, but to be able to come out on the other side of this, and to just help them to heal. And so, being able to use discernment is just it's such a powerful thing. I think we all, whether we've been abused or not, we all could benefit from leaning into discernment, and listening to, again, that feeling that sometimes we get that a person just ain't right, or something just isn't right, and just really kind of leaning into that. Again, I think it's important to not be overly suspicious of everybody that we come in contact with, because you don't want to get to the point where now you're like isolating yourself from everybody. But I think just being able to tap into that sixth sense. And that was another definition that I saw. It was talking about discernment just being like this sixth sense that we all honestly are gifted with. For some, it is stronger than others, but I think it is something that we can strengthen. And for me, what has helped me to strengthen my discernment when it comes to being able to um, judge right from wrong, judge whether something or somebody is good for me or not, is truly leaning into God, and He has helped me grow that discernment, and just the ability to be able um, to grow and to heal. And even with me sharing my own experience, even though I didn't go into full detail about it, um, because I want to touch on that with about in terms of the individual. So I won't name who the person was. I won't even give too many details about who this person was. But I wanted to share this before I exit. But parents, just be mindful of who you leave your kids with. Oftentimes we think, other family members, grandparents, siblings, cousins, people like that, are safe. And most of them aren't. But some of these people don't have good intentions with your children. So, again, to the parents or to anybody who's a guardian of somebody, be mindful, be wise, use wisdom, use discernment when it comes to where you take your kid, who you allow them to be with, who you allow them to stay with, and paying attention to those signs that if you're noticing something in that child's behavior is now shifting and something just seems off, pay attention to that. Don't just chuck it up to your kids just being a kid and whatever, but that they could be dealing with something. And so that's what I wanted to definitely leave you guys with as a nugget, to just be mindful of who we leave our kids with, paying attention to our kids' behaviors, things like that when you know that something is off. And just definitely leaning into that sixth sense that you might feel something's off.
I did not mean to rush you. So if you
No,
have
no, no,
more
you're
to
good.
because I'm gonna tell you right now, I lost track of time. I'm like, oh Lord, because I'm dealing with the blackout here.
Right.
I'm like, and I'm next. So I need some
It's all
lunch.
good because I didn't know. I didn't have a timer up myself, so I'm just talking. I'm like, I don't
No,
know.
but I heard you say, well, before I close, I wanted to share this. So I kind of like, oh, okay, that's my cue. um, Yvonne, you want to say anything before I do?
Yes, yes. I gained so much from what you said. And I think what stood out most in my mind is that the precaution, let's say precaution with
That's
regard
right.
to discernment, not to overdo it, not to scare the whole world, not to put yourself in a bubble and remove yourself from the world, but to go with that gut feeling. Something don't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Something doesn't seem right. I'm a little cautious. Don't walk away from that. And it is so much better to err on the side of caution. My God, I'd rather be wrong about what I'm feeling
Come on.
Yes.
and address it than to be right about what I'm feeling and ignore it. So it is so imperative that we as parents, and the other thing, we have groomers, and groomers don't only groom kids. They
No.
groom the parents. They get in good with mom and dad so that they can be in a more accessible spot or place with your children.
Yep.
They gain the trust of mom and dad. So when mom and dad needs to make a run or do this, or when the child comes to mom or dad saying so and so did this, and it doesn't matter who so and so is. I
Mhm.
don't care if so and so wears a collar and so is a preacher. I don't care if so and so is grandma
That's
and
right.
when our children come to us, it is imperative that we hear them, not
Mm-hmm.
not just hear, because hear means to be made aware of sound or the knowledge of, but that we hear and that we listen to what it is that they're saying, and they're saying something that they don't always know how to express. They
That's right.
don't even understand. They feel uncomfortable. And and I'm gonna end with this, hopefully, with regard to forcing our kids. That's grandpa. Go hug him. Well,
Right.
I said, go no,
Come
man, you
on.
touching the kids.
Mm.
That's your big sister. You can sit on her lap. No. If the
Mm-mm.
child feels uncomfortable, if the
Right.
child is straying away, if the child doesn't
That's
want
right.
to, then it's okay. Mom, I'm sorry. Little Betty, she doesn't want a hug right now. And I've told her that if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to.
That's
You
right.
bear the blunt of that. That child doesn't understand what's going on. All
That's
they know is I don't want to. I don't want to hug so and so. I don't want to sit on so and so lap. I don't want to kiss so and so. And we should not force our children. Go with what you know. Follow your gut. I thank you so much for that, Rich. I thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
And
guys for.
speaking of that, I ain't gonna let you go just yet. And speaking of that, when you said you it's that's also a behavior that you need to be watching. Our kids. Our kids will always give us signals. They may not be able to articulate what happens to them, or what is going on with them, and we need, as parents, we need to do a better job in being able to understand that, right? If
Yes.
anybody is following my journey, I have done 3 segments on parent accountability, because boy, did I have to learn over the course of years, of raising a blended family of 7 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and a granddaughter. And so, yes, I know firsthand, how I was as a parent, and oftentimes, we've never even addressed the little girl or the little guy inside of us, with the traumas that we dealt with. And so we're just forcing what we know onto them because that's all we know. And so we need to get away from, having that as an excuse or a crutch, because that's no longer a thing. Okay, because we have too many things accessible to us. We have therapy, we have counseling, we have support. You know what I mean? There's much more support than I ever did when I was growing up. And so, all I can say is that we also need to be mindful and pay attention to the behaviors that our kids, yes, discern other behaviors, strange behaviors, notify, kind of figure out what that is to you. God did build a radar in us. That is called discernment. That's what he calls discernment, and call it the Holy Spirit, call it his will, whatever you want to call it, but it is discernment. And he did implant that radar in us.
Yeah.
We're so so creatively designed. We can't explain some of the things that we're able to accomplish, and all of that. Man, this is really good. You really stirred up my spirit. You know what I'm saying? You really stirred up my spirit. But the one thing you did say to me was when you felt like you had to question, did the assault really happen? Because why was that my story?
Mm.
Why did I suppress years and years and years of my abuse? And I had to sit my parents down, because what happens is you can suppress it, but oh, for so long. And then
Right.
it has to creep up in your adulthood. And now you have to address it, because it's that monkey on your back. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
know why.
And it
You just
affects
don't
all
know
areas of your
why.
life.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So you can suppress it but for so long, but it will come out. And whatever is done in the dark has to come out. It
Right.
has to come out. And it comes out in strange ways. And so
Oh.
for me, I had to sit my parents down and say, listen, I keep dreaming, visualizing things that happened to me by a girl cousin. Did it happen? And I needed the answer from them, because it was playing tricks in my mind, as if, did it really happen? Did it really
Mhm.
happen? And this is years of it. And so I finally said, no, I need to know. And you know what? The answer was yes.
Mm.
Yes, it was. And I had to deal with that. And it would take me another 10 years for me to deal with that. You know what I mean? This
Yes.
sort of thing will eat away at you, and it'll take a lifetime. And if you're not careful with yourself, you will become a person that you never will even recognize.
That's true.
So, on the topic of discernment, the
Nettie,
next
if I could
topic
jump
is,
in and just add one more
yes,
thing
go
while we're
ahead, go ahead,
talking
go ahead.
about that. That seems to be a common thread. I remember when I was molested at the age of 8, it went out of my mind. I didn't remember it. I was full grown, married with some babies, before I realized that I was watching Oprah on TV while I was doing house cleaning. And there was a show on about sexual assault. And I
Mhm.
began to have flashbacks. That thing
Hmm.
blew me away. That thing scared
Yes.
me to death. And it became so forceful until I stopped in the middle of sweeping or mopping, picked up the phone and asked my mom, "Do we live on such and such street? Did so and so used to babysit? Did so this?" And when she confirmed it, and I remember saying, "So and so molested me," and it got quiet. The phone,
Mm.
and I realized years later that she didn't understand how she felt some fault, because she felt like she had allowed the enemy to come in. She was extremely protective of us, and she had allowed the enemy to come in. And that's what that silence was. That silence wasn't doubting what I had said, but the fact that I
Right.
had blocked it out of my mind for years. That happened when I was 8. I didn't remember it again until I was 22, 23 years old. So sometimes we block things out. I blocked it out because in our household, what happens in the house stays in the house. And if you don't tell it then, you better not tell it later. So when
Mm.
mom came home from work that evening and I didn't tell her, I figured, okay, I can't tell now because I'm going to get in trouble because I should have told it when it happened. So sometimes if we block out that, but like you said, Nettie, it's in there. It's got to come out. It will
Has
cause
to.
you to implode from
Come
the
on.
inside, or you'll explode from the outside. It's got to come out.
Yeah.
And this is why you do need a therapist when you don't know what is wrong with you, because you don't sometimes you just don't know. And sometimes it takes several sessions for you to
Yes.
kind of unwrap all the different layers. Like, we're onions, guys. And onions have different layers of them, of it. And so we're just like that. And so in order for us to be able to come out of this layer effect of, oh my God, there's so many layers of me. Oh my God, I'm going through so much trauma. Oh my God, it's over and over and over again. And if you don't know how to self regulate, right, and you don't use the necessary tools to have some self control, because that's the next word, you're not going to be able to self regulate. Did you want to add anything, Rich?
Yes, everything you guys said, to sort of wrap it up,
Yes.
well stated, so true. And as a therapist myself, I need a therapist. Just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean I can just kind of counsel myself. So I would, say for anybody who's dealing with, recovering and coming out on the other side of this, and they just feel that all hope is lost, seek therapy, seek some support from somebody who can walk with you through this, but who gets it, who from a professional standpoint
Yes.
has the right tools and the things that can support you. Because it's a journey that isn't always the easiest, especially
That's
if
right.
you navigate it what can feel like alone. Because sometimes your spouse, sometimes your friends, and these people, they don't fully get it. So
Mhm.
having that professional support, I would say, is just so important. So important.
Amen. Well, that concludes discernment. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you guys.
Hmm. Yvonne, Yvonne, Yvonne.
Woo! Life changing. I tell you,
I'm
a word, a
I'm telling
word.
you,
The difference a word can make when you
just
hear
one
the
word.
various words. Yes, the various words that each panelist had, and how they expressed and attached that word to their life, and how they're able to rise above what it is
Come
they're going
on.
through. We're breathing hope into individuals.
Woo!
We're breathing life into individuals. So letting them know that it was not your fault. You're not alone. So
That's
often you
right.
get isolated and feel like it was so. I'm the only one that's happened to. No, and our
No.
panel is four men
Yes.
that have
Come
been
on.
sexual. I thank God for this platform and for you
Amen.
saying yes to God. I thank
Amen. Everybody else saying yes to God. Like, I didn't do this alone. I have help, you know, and it's okay to have help. It's okay to need help, you know? So, oh man. All right, Miss Amon. I guess it's my turn, huh?
yes, it is.
All right. Hey, y'all. Mm. Well, this is what I like to do because I'm a poet. I don't have a poetry piece today. I did not want to do that, but I did create for my words kind of like an acronym for myself. I did one for depression, and I do have a piece of called depression. And if you want to hear it, it'll be on my SoundCloud for you guys to listen to after. If you want to go on there, it's under Nutty Long Poetry, and my word is self-control. And what I took self-control as, for the S, is to surrender my thoughts, my concerns, my cravings, my impulses, my negative thoughts about myself, and surrender them to the Lord. E is to evaluate my behavior so that L, I can learn how to manage the triggers. And F is to find ways to avoid temptation. And C is to control what I can. And O is not to overextend myself when I can't. And N is I'm never going to go back to what broke me. And T is to take my time. R is to respect myself and respect others even when I don't agree. And O is to not to overact when I fail. And L is to love myself during the process because, as you know, it does take a process to even address or even to cope with trauma. And for me, I dealt with a lot of trauma. You're looking at somebody who had to deal with sexual assault by a female cousin who was roughly about maybe 10 years older than me. It started at the age of 3. It probably ended around 6 or 7 years old. And I did end up exposing it to my parents, but in a way that's not so common. And so I happen to be drawing on the floor, not on a piece of paper, but drawing on the floor in circles. And so the best way that I can describe it is I was in some sort of trance, but in a sense of acting like I was dealing with the trauma. in third person, if that makes sense. And so I'm about 7 years old and I'm talking to myself, but I'm acting like I'm talking to her. And I'm thinking that the reason why I did that is because I wanted to speak up, but I didn't. And I didn't know how. And so in my private time, I did. And so I said to myself, but to her, why do you touch me there? Why are you touching me there? I mean, I know it's our little secret, but why? And I'm drawing at the same time while I'm doing this, but on the ground, right? It's on tiles. And so I said to her, why are you touching me there? All right, can you guys hear me now? Can somebody just give me a text and let me know? Okay, good. All right. I don't know how much of my story you got. Um, is there anybody in the chat now that can tell me if they heard my story or heard a little bit? I'm going to assume you guys didn't hear it. So, all I was just trying to explain to you is that where I came from, I was molested by my female cousin. And to kind of fast forward, I was kind of like in some sort of trance when I was, when you're a child, you kind of expose things, differently than your parents expect you to. But I was in some sort of trance, and I was talking in third person, as if I was talking to my cousin, asking her, like, why are you touching me there? I know it's our little secret, but you know, why are you touching me? So I ended up getting, my mom went to go get my father, and my father came to the room, and all he saw was that I was coloring onto the floor, ignoring that he was even behind me, but I was coloring onto the floor, and I got a spanking for that. And so my mom had to tell him, no, it's what she's saying. Talk to her about what she's saying. And so he asked me, what happened? Who's been touching you? And so, of course, at this point, he feels so bad that I got a spanking, that he gave me a spanking. But it was the it was the moment for him. At this point, who has been hurting me? Who's been touching me? And so when I did, he did call whoever it was, and at that point, we just never saw them again. It wasn't until my adulthood years where I would realize that I, I I feel like there's something that happened to me, but I had suppressed it. And as you heard when I was talking to our therapist, Rich, that it didn't go very well when I found out it was true. And so, with all of that, with the trauma, and also being at 12 years old, being molested by my dad's assistant pastor, I've I have dealt with a bunch of sexual trauma. And at the time that I grew up, I didn't have examples of what rehabilitation would look like. I didn't even know that there was, therapy when I was, 7 years old. I didn't, I was by the time I was 12, and this happened to me again, that my father asked me, did I want counseling? And I just said, no, I never want to speak of this again, about this again. But what I can tell you, what that does, parents, is when you leave your child's mental health up to them, they deteriorate. I can tell you that I was not well. I dealt with many things that really stunt my growth emotionally, and into identity was one of them. I did not know how or who or what I wanted to identify as, and um i i I started to develop food addictions, and I felt like every job I ever got, I was able to blend in and perform well, and I feel like a lot of trauma survivors of any sort of trauma really do excel at work, because that's our go-to. That's the way that we cope with things. That's the way that you know what I mean, for people to be able to feel some sort of, when they excel at work. What happens when you excel at work? You get rewarded. You get, positions and things like that, and that all is due to, the trauma that you endure, because you don't even want to face you sometimes. And so, we become, I said, with when we were talking to our therapist, that we become something that we don't even recognize, because even when you do excel at one thing, you're not going to excel in your emotional part. You know what I mean? You're just not going to excel, because you haven't even addressed the traumas that you've dealt with. The importance of dealing with your trauma, oh my gosh, to help you to be able to control some of your triggers, what I mean, is detrimental. You're not going to have really any self-control when you have these triggers. I've seen myself want to just get up and fight somebody, just because I didn't like what they said. And so I had to exercise and learn self-control. Even when I was dealing with my children, I had to learn how to have some self control. Now, it did not take immediately, because you think that the trauma that I had as a child, now I'm just going to do this on. I tried to do my notes. I just can't, because I can't see. But God, you take control. What I can tell you is that as I dealt with my trauma at the child level as best as I could, but it wasn't until into my adulthood where I ended up like, oh, I'm going to be a better parent. I just want to do things differently, because I did not have a good example of um uh, uh what a good communication looked like between my parents. I did not have good communication skills at all. Again, I'm dealing with identity. Um, whether I wanted to be, look like a boy, or I did not like my outer beauty. I hated myself, and even though I could be so likable and so lovable, and all of that, and I went the extra mile. Like, I was a good friend to anybody who was my friend, who I can call my friend, or if you can call me your friend, I was a good friend to you. And so um I could excel in all these types of relationships, but not loving myself. And so when you can't love yourself, you can't possibly really love others. And so everything is just like you're writing on fumes, because you're acting. I acted a lot. I think that's probably why I'm a good performer. Like, I can perform when I sing, and I can perform when I act. And so yeah, I did a lifetime of that. I pretended I was okay when I wasn't, and the little child in me is screaming for attention. And then you do things as adults for attention, and you don't realize that it's all tailed down back from your childhood. And so it took me to get married, me to find the love of my life, to only find out that I married a pedophile. Let that sink in. Because what we do as survivors is fall in love with our toxic counterparts, or our toxic. That's what we do. That's what we end up doing. And so we don't even I didn't even realize that I married a pedophile. Like, how in the world did that happen? We both went to church. We both were serving. How did that happen? But because we entertain our stuff in our secret time. Whatever it is that we entertain in our secret time is going to affect us. It's going to affect the way that we are you're in partnership with someone. And so when I found out that he had a problem with addiction, I didn't know how to address it other than I just can't partake of it. I just can't. I just can't. I just can't. And so addiction becomes bigger. Now, I'm not saying, he had a problem. He had to have, right? But I'm saying is that your addiction will find you and it will create a bigger thing. And so he lacked self-control. So the one thing that I had to work on, I now have to have self-control because I no longer could trust myself in relationships. I said to myself, I don't, I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself if I can't even protect my children. I had to, oh my God, learn how to live all over again. Do you know what that feels like? Do you know the guilt and the shame that I brought onto myself? That's what I kept saying to myself. That's the only thing I could see. Now I could barely utter up sentences. I could barely muster up. And I was working for my church at the time. I was working at my church at the time. And if it wasn't for them, oh my God, and the grace that they gave me, I must have been late for a whole year. And no one ever said a word to me. The support system that I had, God's grace, God knew that I needed it because uh, I was very suicidal. I thought about killing myself. But then, I kept bringing in, God kept saying, He kept dropping into my spirit, but what about the children? You really want to fork the kids over to his family? And so that's the only thing that kept me, afloat is that I had to fight for them. And so the girls went through so much trauma. You thought I went through some trauma. I didn't even know what to do with myself, but my girls, they went through so much. And to see your child go through the very same thing you thought you were protecting them from, you're talking to a person who, oh, I thought I was experienced. But the problem with just experience is that's all you have, just your experiences. I didn't have my brother Rob or my sister Yvonne to sharpen iron sharpening iron. I didn't have my help. I only had my experience, and so I only knew what I knew. And of course I did the best I could. But as I told you, that can no longer be our excuse. Just doing what we know. We have access to information to help safeguard who we need to safeguard against. What is bad behavior? What's strange behavior? It's not no longer stranger danger because the people who are hurting us are it's the people we know. It's the people that we love. So why not be accountable not only for yourself, because we don't do enough of that either. We don't do enough of self accountability. And why? Why do we think we know it all? Why do we take up and think we can't learn anything from our children? My children spent years of not being able to talk to me. And then here I am off the deep end asking them, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say something? Because at the same time, I'm telling them to shut up when I'm telling them I'm talking. We don't know the difference. We don't know how to be a parent. And for you to think that you can still continue to carry on in this day and age, no, you can't. You will lose every time. And we're not in this business, and we didn't make it our business to be here to 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 allow you to think that you can continue that way. God is too good to us. He gave us brothers and sisters to be able to you know uh get help. It's okay to need help. It's okay to need help with your children. But how you think you're going to do that? I had to go through, how many years of therapy I had to go through with just my family? 4. She came 3 days a week. She sure did. A trauma focused therapist. I'm not afraid to say that. How in the world can we become better? And if we don't know what our triggers are, so we can learn what they are, so we can deal with what they are by practicing self control. We need to be able to self control. We're able to do a lot with self control. I won't jump into the next relationship because I have self control. I've been able to observe relationships from afar. Yeah, yeah. I don't want that. I went about 7 years, didn't even think about dating. But it was my kids, they're adults now, who now tell me, you know what, mom, you deserve to be happy. You devoted your time. You devoted your energy. You devoted your life to us. I did. I did. But that's my duty. That's my reasonable service. That was the least that I can do. I'm getting a little emotional. That is the least that I could have done. I love my kids. And those of you who follow me, who know me personally, you know I love my kids. Was I hard on them? Absolutely. Were there things I could have taken back? Absolutely. Would I have parented better? Absolutely. But how could I when I'm just now in my adult age dealing with a trauma that I was trying to prevent them from ever experiencing? Having to deal with abandonment because I dealt with abandonment. You're looking at someone who, even though her father was a pastor, he abandoned us as a family to be with someone else. And I promised them that I wouldn't leave them. So that means that suicidal thought I had to kill it. I needed help to kill that because that thing was festering around like nobody's business because that's what the enemy wants. He wants us to die physically. And it always starts spiritually because I was a spiritual woman. So that's what he does. He has a divine purpose. Everybody has a divine purpose, and that enemy is to really destroy you emotionally, then spiritually. If he can get me to walk away from God, oh, won't it be a happy day? But I won't. I refuse. I refuse. And there's things that I had to put into check, that I had to use self control. That okay, this guy is fine, but no, I see. I looked at his social media. He's just not gonna be. He ain't gonna be the one. No, we have access to too much right now to be not to be able to discern what's good for us and what's bad for us. We've been through so many of the same trials and tribulations over and over and over again. Why do we keep doing that? Because we've got no self-control. So if you take, I know a lot of people say like, wow, what a word. Right. Right. That word just kept coming up to be the word. And then I ended up with it. I had no idea until maybe 2 weeks ago that this was gonna be my word. But you know what? I thank you, God. I thank you, God. I thank you for the self-control that I have been able to accomplish. And let me tell you, it's gonna be a journey. It's a lifelong journey because anybody can trigger us. I mean, let me hear a story about a child being abused and I'm all over, with triggers and I have to, sometimes I got to take a mental health day, just to kind of get over what I just heard. Because it's never going to be easy, you know. Surviving is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives, but God makes it light. He'll make it light. He'll make it manageable. I don't know if I'm over my time. I hope that you have gotten something out of the word self control. God is my witness. I'm gonna bleed this out to the day I die. That I'm gonna practice self control. Everything takes a practice. Let me add my co-host and try to. Oh man, get rid of some of these tears. Oh God, I'm so grateful for all the panelists. Sister back on. You there, sis? Oh God, why I can't hear you? I can't hear you, Mama.
I got you, girl. I got you. Let the
All right.
tears flow. The tears are
Whew.
therapy. The tears are healing. The tears are a release. Let it out. The tears show your passion, your dedication, and your determination. our tears reflect on some of the mistakes that we've made, and being able to recognize those mistakes and being able to rise above them. So it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. I enjoyed hearing you share again, and it always just tugs at my heart, especially the portion of knowing your dad, a father figure, a pastor, and then for him to abandon, as you have said, the family for someone else, uh, uh, causing some unwise choices in your life, not recognizing and feeling like I got this under control. This happened to me. I can recognize it. I can tell it from afar off. I can see and recognize it. I got this. And then to find out that you married a pedophile. I'm sure that had to beat you up in your head, your heart, your mind, knowing that it was no longer the enemy without.
Right.
We didn't open the door, allow the enemy to come in, have a seat. Enemy, now you're a part of my family. But I thank God for how God has been able to bless you and to get the healing that you needed, and to acknowledge the fact that I had a therapist. You said 4 years, 3 days a week, 4 years, every week. And that's what it takes. It may take longer for some, but it takes being able to express ourselves in a safe, that is crucial. That is crucial, to be able to express yourself in a safe environment where you can just let it all out, because we can't address what's in there if we don't get it up and out. So I am so glad to know that you were able to do that. And you spoke about stranger danger. At one time, that was the term that was used, stranger danger, because that's what we believe, that the harm that would happen to our kids could only happen by way of a stranger. Surely not a family member. Surely not the preacher. Surely not the pastor's friend, or surely not. So now the term that we use is an unsafe people. The term that we use now are tricky people, because we don't want to plant in the minds of our kids that it's a stranger that's going to do this. We've got to let them know that anybody that makes you feel unsafe, anybody that makes you feel uncomfortable, those are people that we need to be aware of. And it's okay to talk to us. You can tell us, my coach made me feel uncomfortable. My teacher made me feel uncomfortable. The neighbor next door made me feel uncomfortable. When I went to the corner store, the person made, we've got to teach our kids those things. So I gained so much. And the fact about not loving yourself, I think as survivors, many of us, there is a common thread across the board, male and female. And I think not loving ourselves and blaming ourselves is one of those common threads that go across. We don't love ourselves. We don't feel valued. We have no confidence. We're not able to discern who we are. We don't have any peace. We don't love ourselves. But by the grace and the mercy of the Almighty, we've got platforms like this. I heard you say at one point you didn't have anybody to reach out to. All you had was your experiences. You didn't have somebody to talk to, somebody to relate to. But look, that's why we are doing what we're doing today. And if we only reach one person, I feel successful. I feel successful if we've only reached one person. I'd love to reach the masses, but if I only reach one person, and that person is made better, made stronger, and then they go on and they reach one person. That's why we ask that you please share the video, share the conference, share it. There's going to be something that's said that's going to impact someone else in a positive way. I thank you for sharing, Nettie. I thank you so much.
Oh, well, I'm better now. I had to get it off me. Woo, I'm better now. But I see, hey, we got Robert in the house. He's next. So let's add him to the stream.
Come on, Robert.
Let's add him to the stream. There he is.
Hey, what's up, family? How are you? You had
man.
me. I was on the phone with Rich listening. We over here like, come on, Daddy, you doing your thing.
Listen, I'm getting better and better at it. The more I tell it.
That sounds good. It's such an honor to be here. You all are doing such an amazing work, and I'm just honored and excited to be a part of it. This is really dope.
So what's your? Go ahead.
Go ahead. My word is intentional.
Oh.
My word is intentional, and I think this is, as I've listened throughout the day, I've noticed that many of the speakers who come to the platform, they have gone on a journey of self-discovery. They've gone on their own journey to healing, and it reminds me of the work that we do. And we always tell everyone who we work with is healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. We believe that there is a place called wholeness, but we get there one healing step at a time. Now, here's the thing about this journey: all of our journeys have to be intentional. We have to, that healing does not just come by happenstance. Breakthrough doesn't just come by happenstance. Whatever we are really searching for, we have to be intentional about it. When you are intentional about pursuing your healing, about pursuing wholeness, you make a strategic strategy and a plan to ensure that you're going to get to the destination. I'm talking about the level of intentionality, the same level that a coach has with a player that they want to exceed and excel and be the best and have victory. In order to get to victory, victory does not happen by happenstance. Many of us who have been abused or experienced various types of abuse, oftentimes we can say, hey, I'm gonna just wait, I'm gonna just chill. Statistics prove to us that even with men that realize that they've experienced some type of sexual abuse, typically wait or can identify it to 20 years after the abuse, and may take another 5 to 10 years for them to do something about it, because there is not any intentionality of them pursuing their journey to wholeness. Sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of shame, sometimes because we don't have the resources to get there. But when you make something intentional, you put a stake in the ground, you establish a goal. It requires measurement, it requires strategy. And so our healing has to be strategic. What am I saying? That as we pursue our journey of wholeness, that we have to then create strategies that ensure that we get to where we're trying to go. That means we have to have goals. That means we have to have resting points. That means we have to have checkpoints. So it is not just enough to acknowledge that, hey, I have these issues. Healing has to be intentional. So, my first question to us is, what intentional steps have you taken to start or begin your journey to wholeness? Where are you? Have you started? Have you come to the place where you're like, hey, I know where I'm going? Or are you just kind of feeling around in the dark, hoping and reaching that you get to your destination? Coming to conferences like this and being around environments like this can be a part of the healing journey. Intentionality when healing requires a strategy or a plan. In order to create a plan, there has to be intention, and you have to know that you are worth pursuing whatever you're doing, and that you have the ability, the skill, the know-how, the anointing, the power, the energy that's needed to pursue wholeness. Sometimes wholeness can seem like it's very far away and that we will never get there. But part of us becoming and beginning the journey is faith. The Bible says faith without works is dead. Faith doesn't work until you work it. Healing faith requires movement, it requires momentum. And so the first thing is we have to develop a plan. You're not going to get there. You're not going to get there by happenstance. And the second thing is you're not going to get there by yourself. If you could have healed yourself, you would have already done it by now. So you have to then create a strategy. But after the strategy, because the strategy is great, many of us have strategies to do a lot of things, but strategy requires execution. You have to create a roadmap, or you have to get an understanding or a revelation in your mind and your heart. Oftentimes when we experience trauma literally creates a split and divide between the mind, the body, and the soul. And so many of us who've experienced various types of trauma, our mind may feel one thing, our body may say one thing, and our soul says another thing. The Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. It's not just talking about this physical mind, but it's talking about the equilibrium between all of who you are, your mind, your body, and your soul. Creating a strategy, number one, calls your mind into order. It says, okay, I'm using this and I'm going in this direction, and I have to use my intellect. I have to use my brain power in order to create the path. But then I also now have to call into alignment not just my mind but my body. This means it's going to require effort. It means I'm going to have to exert energy. It has to be intentional. This means I have to put energy behind it. I have to put money behind it. I have to put whatever resources are necessary for me to work the vision. Gone is the day that you just have a vision, a dream, a strategy. We've all had strategy. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be great. I'm going to do this. But we have the strategy. But then when it comes to moving and executing, many of us are stuck in that place because of fear, because of anxiety, because of stress, because of depression, because of dark psychological thoughts, because of issues that have plagued your body. Your body. And part of journeying to wholeness is, in order to move and work the plan, you have to allow God to redeem your body. God, you have to allow and receive the redemptive work that Jesus has done for all of us, to redeem our body, to redeem our flesh. And I'll say this, if I wasn't preaching, I would say you have to be able to take back your power to choose who you decide to be. Because many of us settle for the version of ourselves that our abusers told us we were. Even if it wasn't physically, the fact that they took your power away, the fact that they did not give you the opportunity to choose. Because of that, then there is disassociation with our body. And so our mind can be one place, but our bodies can be stuck. Our bodies begin to, and sometimes they physically grow, they go and do and become, but our mind is still locked in the past about what happened. And so you have to cause your mind and your body to come in sync, in a synchronous rhythm, in order to begin to work the plan. I want to declare to everyone that is listening that in this season, you will work the plan. You will no longer just dream about it, because some of you, your dreams have become your nightmares. You've had plans, you've had strategies, you've had great ideas about moving forward, but when it came for you to actually execute it, because there was a lack of money, because there was a lack of energy, there was a lack of resources. You didn't know how God is going to put super to your natural. And now it's time for you to reclaim your body. I want you to recall your body back. Your body no longer belongs to your abuser. It no longer belongs to people that have rejected you, people that have hurt you, people who have looked over you. Your body, you do not have to literally let yourself go. Some of us abusers, we really, people who have been abused, we struggle with weight sometimes because we have really let our body go, because we don't believe that it's redemptive. We don't believe that it's worth fighting for. But today, you're going to get your fight back. Today, you're going to get your drive back. Today, you're going to get your oomph back. You're going to get your energy back so that you can put purpose and you can put energy towards what God has shown you. You have to believe that there is a place called wholeness, but you're going to get there one healing step at a time. In your chat section, if you can just put one step at a time, one step at a time. One of the stories is, for me, one of the things that the impact or the effects of my abuse was that I was, at one point in my life, my weight would be up and down, and I was morbidly obese. And I was to the point, I think I was 375 pounds. I'm only 5'5". So I was carrying a lot, not realizing that the physical weight that I was carrying was a manifestation of the inner weight that I never dealt with. And so as I had a desire to do great things, I dreamt about doing great things. I did not have the strength to do those things. And whenever I moved, it was painful. And many of us, like me, whenever we want to do things, we don't do it because it's too painful. We don't go certain places. We don't do certain things. We don't say certain things because it reminds us of what happened to us, or it's too painful. But I declare, I remember as I was walking one day crying, and I was so fed up with myself and with the way I said something has to change. And I remember saying to myself, if the first thing that I needed to do was walk around my block, just walk around my block, if I could just get one around the block with all the pain, with all the stress, with all the anxiety, And as I would walk around the block, I started crying because of the pain that I physically felt, not realizing that that pain was attached to emotion. So as I began to walk, I would begin to pray. I would say, God, I need you to help me take the other step. God, I need you to help me do this because I don't have the strength. I don't have the energy to do this. So God, I need you to help me. And can I tell you, some of you, you are just one prayer away. You are one thought away. You are one fight away from experience the greatest breakthrough of your life. I remember walking and praying and saying, God, I need your help. And so I said, I just have to take one step at a time. And as I begin to take one step at a time, over a period of time, when it took me an hour and a half to walk around my block, it started taking me 45 minutes. Then it took me 30 minutes. Then it took me 20 minutes. Then before I know it, I was jogging around my block. But it happens one step at a time. And part of beginning the journey and putting energy to this is showing up. You have to show up. You have to show, and I tell everybody this, as a survivor, you cannot show up for your kids. It is not about you doing this for your wife, for your kids, for your husband, for the people that love you. No, this is a fight that you have to show up for you because you are worth fighting for. Somebody in the comments say, I'm worth fighting for. And you begin that process one step at a time. So then the first thing is having the plan. The second thing is calling your body into alignment. Paul said it like this: I have to beat myself into subjection. And some of us, when our flesh has been abused or we've experienced these levels of abuse, our flesh is used to dysfunction, is used to disorganization, which means now you have to, as you call your mind, the Bible says, let this mind that was in you be in Christ Jesus. You call your mind back. I want somebody to know the enemy trying to take your mind, but your abusers trying to take your mind, but you have the power to call it back, that you have the mind of Christ, that you are walking in sanity. You're not crazy. ADHD won't have you. ADD and depression and suicide and all of these other things that try to plague your mind, you call it back and say, I have the mind that Christ said I can have. And then you put it in line with your body. And then that's when mobility, you have some push. You start doing this stuff. But after you move into pushing, you got to be able to stay faithful to the plan. You got to stay faithful to the plan. I believe that staying faithful to the plan requires discipline. It requires intentionality. It requires accountability. And in order to do those things, you have to be able to be intentional about sticking to your plan, working your plan, surrounding yourself intentionally with people who are going to hold you accountable and push you towards the goal. Listen, I hope I helped somebody. My name is Robert Marshall. Thank y'all so much for having me, Nettie and Yvonne. Y'all are doing an amazing job, an amazing work. I love y'all. I hope I was able to help somebody.
You did. And I know if you have to jump off, you can.
I'm here. I got a few more seconds. I got a few more minutes.
Well, we appreciate you. We love you. I don't know where my girl is. I'm
She was
trying to
just
add her. She was.
Oh, that preach man came up and out, bro. That preach man. I don't know if you're a preacher. I don't know what it is. But I'll tell you, that preach man came up and out. That preach man said, I ain't taking no back seat tonight.
I have her on, so I don't know.
I got a word to share.
Just hit the reset button. Says,
that preach man said, somebody give this preacher some water, give him a towel, give him a mint. He gave a word on today. I'm so encouraged. I wish you could see my notes. Can you see? Can you see? I got notes on everybody. Oh my goodness. The healing is the journey, but wholeness, my God, wholeness is the destiny. It's the destination. I got someplace to go. I too am a minister. I don't know if you are, but I got a message out of that young man. I got someplace to go. Destiny. Okay. And then he went on to say, where are you along this pattern? Where are you along your journey? Every day, every journey begins with a step. At what phase of the journey are you on? Movement may be painful. Oh my God. It's going to hurt to move and grow and stretch and do things you've never done before. But are you willing to go where you've never been? to get what you never had. You're going to endure some pain. There's going to be some stress. There's going to be some opposition. But are you willing to do what you need to do to get what it is you want? Show up for you. I know you love your babies. I know you love your mama. I know you want to be a help to somebody else. But in order to be successful at what it is you're doing, you got to do it, and you got to do it for you. The journey begins with faith. Oh, God. You got to have faith and trust in something, someone. Oh, you got to know that there is a higher being. You've got to know that I can't do it by myself, because if I could, it could have been done. It would have been done. It would have been a done deal if I could have done it by myself. Oh my goodness! There was 4 things you said, and I think I missed one. Plan, alignment, stay faithful to the plan. But I think I forgot one, because I think you said it was 4. But
accountability. You have to have accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Oh God. I enjoyed you as much as each of the panelists. I've enjoyed each of you. Everyone had a word. And I thank God for you. You bless my soul, young man. You bless my soul. Amen.
Thank y'all for having me so much.
You're welcome.
You know you're my girl. I love you.
I'm going to see you in Philly.
Hey, I look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Yes, I'll be there. Yvonne, you better get your ticket, because
I'm getting a ticket today.
Oh, all right.
Can I tell you? Listen, we only have 100. So we have the ARC conference coming up. We only are accepting 100 seats. We already have 10 registered. The conference is not until 2025.
And I'm one of them.
You are one of them.
That's right. I was probably first.
We only have 100 seats only, and we already have 10 for a conference that's happening next year. So y'all better go ahead and get y'all seats.
Yeah. All right. Take care. All right. So listen. So I know he had to go, but this is what I got out of everything. All right. So I love that he said that we are one prayer, we are one thought, we are one breakthrough away. You know what I mean? From reaching our destination. And the fact that he said, it does take one step at a time. It does. The journey is, you're going to have some mess ups. You're going to have some setbacks, and you got to be able to, hey, all right, don't get hard on yourself. I said that. Don't allow, have some self-control and give yourself some grace, because you are going to need some grace. We've been operating in God's grace. Little do we know, you know what I mean? It may not always feel like that, but we are. And so give yourself some grace, give yourself some room to be able to make mistakes. It's all right. But you do have to fight for you. You have to show up. Can't nobody do that work but you. You can't be a better mother, unless you address, your traumas or anything that's going on internally that you have to address. You can't be a better anything until you are better to yourself. Yourself. I'm gonna do an acronym for yourself. So listen, you have got to love yourself enough to take care of yourself. And if that means you have to, set up boundaries, maybe not talk to some of your family members for a while. Like sometimes you need a break, because toxic people, they're not going to give you the benefits that you need when you're trying to get better, right? So the journey that you're on to wholeness, if it means you got to leave some people out, you leave them out. But yourself, you are what's matter. And if you understand that you matter, once you understand that you matter, then you get to choose what else matters to you. I don't know. I don't know if we're talking to anybody out there. Are we talking to anybody out there?
I know we are. I trust and believe that we are. Yes, we are.
I definitely liked when he said calling your body into submission. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to fight for that. I know I have a eating, like I feel like I can't call it an eating disorder because I'm not getting physical help for it, but I know that I have some sort of trouble with cravings, and we all sit up here and we laugh about it, but no, I can honestly say that I use food to soothe me. And so especially don't let me have a bad day. Don't let me have some triggering days, because I go right to food. And so I have to take it one step at a time. As Robert Marshall said, I'm going to take it one step at a time. And if I can win a day here and then I can win the next day. And if I can win that day, then I'm going to win the next day. And if I fall back, then I'm going to get back up and I'm going to win the next time. We have to be intentional. We have to be around people who intentionally, we have to be around the right people. And so, woo, that was good. Because you know what? I do have the mind of Christ. And I'm going to keep confessing that until my mind aligns with what God has to say about me. Girl, who next? It's Daquan, I know. He's been waiting to get on and so patient. Let's add him onto the stream, please. Look at my buddy there, Mr. Model, Mr. Content Creator. Like,
Let me say
yo.
this: you guys have. I said it before, but that's why I'm saying it again. You guys did no. You guys didn't do a great job. It was so gracefully done. Like,
Amen.
I mean, amazing, amazing. So I was just watching from afar, like, and then it's crazy to see, to see my brothers.
Yeah.
I'll get into my story in a minute, but to see my
Yeah.
brothers come on, like,
Yeah.
that gave me so much confidence, and to just see how far we've come, and the men that I'm connected with now, and the women I'm connected
Mhm.
with now, like, wow, it's been a long journey. I mean, it's been a long, grateful journey. Like, so then Robert, he went to preaching and teaching. So I'm like, dang, I got to go after that. I don't know what to say after
Listen, his word, y'all, is confidence. And I know you was
Oh
all slick with
man.
it and added it just now, like we wasn't gonna pick up on that. Of course. You have the mind of Christ and you have the confidence of Christ. All
Yes,
right, we're gonna
absolutely.
we're gonna let you do what you do. And we love you.
Thank you. I love y'all too. I love y'all. Um, Firstly, I would like to say, I was looking up the definitions of every. Oh, let me say this first. We talk about grace, and then you talked about grace and giving yourself grace, as we all were talking about. And first thing that came to my mind uh, earlier was that it's important to give yourself grace, and that all the people that are watching this right now um, understand that you did the best of what you had. You're doing the best of what you had, the resources. And here's the thing: is a lot of times we beat ourselves up, not being able to make those next steps, or finding certain groups, or finding things that can help us, or starting anew, treating ourselves better. You can't do that with what you don't know, and that's how. And so it's like you have to give yourself grace. You have to intentionally give yourself grace to be better. So I wrote that down. I was like, oh my god, like I need to, like, they are on it. So that was in my notes. um Now confidence is interesting. So confidence for me is very much interesting because that's something I'm ongoing working with. And sometimes I guess you look at someone's image or from afar, and you have these thoughts about them, about how confident they may be, or how they look, or they carry themselves. And so you can be confident. I'm like, I'm still working on that. That's something that I still struggle with. So as I'm writing my notes and stuff down, I'm like, well, what am I going to give, or what can I give to this moment? um but I want to speak as a survivor of someone that has confidence, and as a man of God too. My confidence definitely came from God. Like at my lowest moments, through all my journeys I've been through to get to where I'm at now, and I'm still on my journey to wholeness, it has been God. And I can't speak for anybody else. I know everybody else may believe and have different faiths and beliefs, but honestly, at my lowest moments, I never would have thought the same thing that broke me would be the same thing God has allowed me to do to heal people, or to walk in and heal people. I never even thought, to be honest with you, I didn't even know this was actually the stem of all the issues I was dealing with. I had no idea this was the thing. Not until I came um, in proximity with Robert and the other brothers. Um, and so I'll start there. So my word is confidence. I'll start to my journey. I am a survivor. I'm also a co-author of Echoes, along with my other brothers. Um, and it's bringing awareness to men have been sexually traumatized. I dealt with some former sexual trauma, and these brothers are awesome. But I didn't know that was the stem of my issues. But it led me to so many downfalls. I'm talking about from being a recovering alcoholic, to being suicidal ideation, low self-esteem, low confidence, just not trusting myself, not trusting others. Um, and I'll start here. Robert met me at the darkest place of my life, one of the darkest places. My brother had just passed away. Um, and what's crazy is I'm back home in Saginaw, Michigan. And I found out why I was here. So it's all coming to the forefront, which is, so y'all see me crying. I don't apologize for it, but I can't, this was the actual place in which I found out. Um, and I remember finding out my brother had passed away from COVID and was so numb. I found out on July 4th of 2020. And I remember just being so numb. And during that time, I just lost myself. I was already dealing with depression, anxiety, and all these other things that may happen to me. Um, and I was lost. I gave up on God. I gave up on people. Um, let me hold on. Let me change.
There we go. I took my headphones out so y'all can hear me better. Sorry. But I was saying last time my brother passed away, when my brother passed away, I was at the lowest point of my life. When I found out I was in Saginaw, Michigan, it was July 4th, 2020. I couldn't forget it. And I was so numb, so hurt that I couldn't do anything to help him, you know. We were this close, and he was actually one of the brothers that actually was able to allow me to step out of that dark place, start telling my story. Of course, Robert was one of the first men that I've met that was boldly telling the story. Like to see that he was in detail and he was sharing with the details of where it was, how it happened, his age, all that stuff. That was the biggest surprise. But Darius was the one. He was the one that really spoke to that dark place in my life at the moment, to let me know, like, hey, why not put your story out there? People need to hear it. I was afraid that how would people perceive me in the church? How, even though it's not my fault, let me, it's none of our fault that these things happen, but how the church perceive me as a black man? How does the black community perceive me, right? And anyway, after that happened, I remember at the moment I was homeless. I don't know where, I forgot where I was exactly. Robert called me. I called him months ago for help concerning all this stuff, but I thought he just dissed me. I thought he was super busy, he forgot about me. And I remember I remember being in such a low place, blocking people out, not talking about it. I gained so much weight. I was on the verge of this close to suicide, this close. I remember Robert called, and the first thing he said, "Man, I love you, man." He said, "I love you." He said, "I love you. I appreciate you." And so many people at that moment was trying to rush me out of out of this was happening, right? But Robert called me and said, "Look, I'm working on a project. I want you to be a part of this." Now, I know my word is confidence, but I'm talking about intentionality. He called. He said, "I can do this by myself for a project I was working on, but I want some other brothers to be able to share their stories boldly and tell it how they want to within this book that I'm working on, this project." And I'm thinking to myself, now, why in the world would this man ask me to write about my story and I didn't think about overcoming. I looked at it as a victim person. I mean, a victim thing, a victim mindset. But I didn't think of it as being a survivor. So he said, "I want you to put your story in here, write it, and I just want you to be a part of this." And at the moment, I was blocking everybody out. I was done. I was done. And at that moment, also, I wasn't praying to God. I didn't want to hear nothing about God. I laid all my faith down. And that was the moment into which I heard God speak to me for quite some time. I was dumbfounded. He said, "I just want you to be a part of it. I'm not asking you to stop your movement. I'm not asking you to stop what you're doing. I know you're going through with your brother, and I love you, and I'm here for you, but I need you a part of this. I'll teach you. I don't know what it is. I just need you to be a part of this project." So that's where the intentionality came from. And I think that was the beginning of my confidence. And that's where I wanted to start there, to have someone to believe in you. Now, this is where I get emotional. To have someone to believe in you and to see a different meaning of what a man is, because everybody has these quotes or this definition of what a man is. But I learned that a man is intentional. A man builds his confidence because, because he's intentional, because he's bold, because he's willing to share, because he's willing to go that extra mile. And he could have easily worked on this project by himself, but he brought me to the fold. And ever since, I've been looking at his example, and that's how I've been able to build my confidence. I just wanted to share a few things, right? So that right there is brotherhood. Brotherhood has definitely helped me with my confidence. And I know we're speaking to men and women. I just want to speak to the brothers because it's on my heart. So confidence for me, or as a survivor, um, means believing in your strength to overcome trauma, advocating for yourself, setting boundaries, because you can't build something up if you don't have boundaries in place, finding support. So happened that I, when I'm darkest moments and found support, I didn't, that happened. God definitely made that happen because I wasn't looking for it. Um, and it says it's about resilience and self-compassion, empowering yourself to shape your own future. Now, I had wrote that and put that in there, make sure I shared that, because a lot of times people misconstrue cockiness with confidence, and it's a big difference. And so definitely my confidence comes from God, but it comes with being intentional. It comes um, with putting yourself first. I wanted to share a few things of why it's hard to build confidence as a survivor. So a few of those things is self-blame and guilt. Um, I honestly didn't know what else to do but to self-blame, and also the as far as a guilt trip, because I didn't have anybody to talk to. And oftentimes, and this is my testimony, oftentimes when I did share it, it was like, how come you didn't do anything? How come you weren't bold enough to step up? You were a young man. It's like, and so what happens is, um, you're self blaming yourself because you're thinking to myself, like, what can I have done to have changed the circumstances? There's nothing you could have done. God has given people free will, and I think it's important for us not to mix that or misconstrue that with those two things. And then also trust issues, because those very same people that you loved are the same ones that will hurt you. Um, the guy across the street that abused me, bullied me at moments, but that was the one that for years and years and years would follow me, would abuse me, but at the same time when nobody was around, would make me feel like I was a friend of his. So it was hard to understand the true definition of trust, or what trust was with a person. So of course, I absolutely built trust issues. There was walls up already, but now a person that you thought was your friend and manipulated me into sexually abusing me, um, groomed me, and I didn't even know I was groomed. Not until I started hearing other people's stories, that made me feel as if like he's the only person I can trust, but at the same time hurting me and abusing me. Happened for years. For concerning my story, it happened from, and it was other people as well throughout my life, but this happened from fifth grade to around ninth, 10th grade. And it seems like, and I told this story before among some of my brothers, it seems like no matter what, he found me, no matter where I was, no matter what part of my life. So every time I got the chance or a moment to build confidence up, here he comes around the corner, calling me, over a friend's house. Saginaw is a very small place, but everywhere I went, this predator, this person that preyed on me, he found me. I don't know how. I know this is a small city, but everywhere he went. And so trust issues, and then you have um, flashbacks and triggers that constantly. So every time you feel like, okay, I'm making progress and I'm confident enough to be able to do this, now you're having triggers about what happened. Can I be honest with you too? One of my friends said, I feel like I'm having flashbacks and triggers, so I feel like I'm not. I feel like I haven't made progress. You can still walk boldly and still have confidence and still rest assured that you're making progress, and be confident in that. Just because you have triggers doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It's just a matter of the mind reminding you. The mind doesn't forget. Sometimes you may forget subconsciously, but the mind never. The body. I think it was a book called "The Body Keeps Score," and a lot of times those flashbacks just remind you that you're human, that's happy, but that was one of the things as well that kept me feeling like I couldn't make, I wasn't making progress. Can I be honest with you? I feel like I know I'm for sure I'm making progress and I'm confident in where I'm at now. But I was in Kroger a couple of days ago, same Kroger I was in maybe a couple of years ago when I went with one of my best friends. I was in Kroger. I remember the last time I went in this same Kroger, I smelled, and I'm just speaking. I know I hope you guys are hearing what I'm saying. I don't mean to rant, but I hope you guys are hearing what I'm saying concerning confidence. Certain things the enemy will bring up to make you feel like as if like you're still in the same place. And that right there, that trigger made me lose all confidence in the moment, as if like I've made no progress, I've done no work, forgetting all the work I put into, all the people that poured into me, and I froze up. Now this was years ago. I froze up. I smelled his cologne, a cologne he often wore when I did experience sexual abuse from him, and I froze in my tracks. And it was so embarrassing because people stared at me. People were looking at me, and this happened in the mid conversation of talking to somebody. Now, back then, I didn't have the resources. Let me just speak. I didn't have the resources and the people in my life, but I froze up. And even the little work I put in, and that's when really, truly, I realized that I had to be intentional on getting some healing. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I know if a person has that much power, Jesus, thank you, Lord, has that much power over you to stop you in your tracks, to make you forget all the things that people poured into you and the progress that you've made, to make you feel that way. If they have that much power over you, you have to seek help. And here's the thing is you can't get, my therapist told me this recently as I was struggling to deal with some truth that, sometimes you have to go back to fix some things in order to move forward, right? And he was like, you can't get help from anything you're not willing to admit. Now, I've heard this before. I know this because God can always intervene, right? But God needs you to speak the thing, to be truthful to it in order for you to get healing. And that's when I realized like I have to get some help. This man has led me to be an alcoholic, to there's porn addiction, to choosing the wrong friends, being around the wrong people, staying in friendships that meant me no good, that drove me to like almost to insanity. I'm depressed all these years. Anxiety is always sneaking up on me. I had to get help. So being a part of this group, the survivors group, which I have to mention, the survivors group is a group that Robert created in order for survivors and advocates. I want to say all men are welcome, but for advocates too, that allows you a safe space in order for us to be able to heal and have dialogue among survivors, not just telling your story or woe is me, but we're really on the journey with them and walking with them. I think that it's easy to just go ahead and give people advice, which is why I love this podcast, what Nettie was doing. It's easy to give people advice. Go get some healing, go get some therapy, go pray about it. It's easy to do that. But the difference I've learned within having a mentor like Robert and the brothers I'm a part of, the circle, is that there's a difference when you choose to walk with a person too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I gave these brothers a headache. You hear me? Like, I know I gave them a headache. I mean, constantly pouring into somebody and looking for them to build confidence, and then boom, you just like, hey, what happened? But they stuck with me. They prayed with me. They made sure I got into therapy, make sure I was doing my homework, making sure that before I pour into somebody and make someone else my next assignment, that you better be your next assignment. You are your next assignment. You can definitely help and assist people along your way. That's how God works. But you have to be intentional on taking your own advice.
Oh, Daquan, were you finished?
No, oh, look. I'll leave. You know what? Yeah, yeah. I'll leave it at that. I
No,
saw
I
you.
don't want you to be finished.
No,
I
no, no,
just
no,
had
no.
to
Look,
reboot because I couldn't hear
no, no, no. Look, because I want to wrap up with this and saying this. Because we talked about confidence and why you would
you.
lose
Yes.
confidence, but how to gain the confidence back. And I want to just go over the few words. Seek therapy. And I'm a man of God, so I believe faith and therapy go together.
That's right.
You can't convince me otherwise.
Come on.
People say, "Oh, you got God," and I got so much slack, by the way, when I decided to share my story, Nettie, and put it out there. People are like, "Oh, and you go to therapy? Why you can't just talk to one of the brothers and sisters in church?" A lot of times we're ignorant to the fact, not saying that, and I mean ignorant in the sense of the definition, right?
That's
That we
right.
don't have the resources. Um, Nobody wants to talk about it. It's like taboo. And how can we
Mhm.
heal from it or ask you guys some advice when you guys are running from it? And it's happening in the church. Let me just say that. Yeah, let me just say that. I know we don't want to talk about it sometimes, but those are some of my friends' stories. But
Yeah,
seeking therapy is a way of gaining your confidence, practicing self care. Most of these brothers don't know what self care is if it
that's
doesn't involve someone else,
mm,
because that's what you're used to. You're used to helping, being a person that's been abused. You start to get this thing when you want to make sure everybody is good. You become a people pleaser. You don't know what it is to practice self care. It's like, okay, what's self care? Oh, if when I do this for somebody or this is involved, like what is it to do it for yourself? Take the people out of it. You know, um, setting boundaries. How can you gain confidence when you're constantly allowing people in within your space that don't respect your boundaries? And let me say this: my therapist always tells me a boundary is a boundary. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's family, yourself, out of the people around, the people you love. Like a boundary doesn't shouldn't come down because of a specific person. The boundary should always be up there, you know. And then challenging yourself to negative thoughts, speaking out loud too. A lot of times I'm always in my headspace, right? Coming from a person that has ADHD, deals with anxiety, always in my headspace. And a lot of times my therapist is like, a lot of times you will speak these negative things into your mind and then they come to fruition, eventually, right? You have to speak out loud. You have to, that's from affirmations to the scriptures. Like, I've been practicing being better to myself. When I feel like things are coming together, I tell myself loudly, "You're doing good." It's simple, something small, nothing deep. You're doing great. You're making progress. You got people that love you. When I feel like shutting down and disappearing, that's the first thing I do. I got people that wants to listen. I got a people that are on this journey with me, connecting with others. Our survivor circle group, I'm big on, and finding people that look like you, that are talking about their stories. And my last thing is celebrate your progress.
hmm
Celebrate your progress. Every small. I know we come from a place where we don't feel like we could, right? Or we've never had it on us, or we feel like it's wrong to do that, right? um for anything good that we don't believe that we deserve it. But celebrating your progress reminds you of how far you come. It has nothing to do with being cocky. It builds your confidence. If I can say, you know what, a couple of years ago that would have triggered me to stop everything. A couple of years ago that would have ruined my relationship. You know what I'm saying? A couple of years ago, you know what, I would have gave up on the church. I would have gave up on that. I would have reacted. I would have yelled at that person. I would have done this. um I would have, for me, celebrating my progress is me. I'm a recovering alcoholic,
hmm
and so a lot of times I'll tell myself, like, every time it's present, I don't get to blaming nobody or like, no, I don't. You don't offer it or nothing to me. I remind myself that I put the work in intentionally and gain my confidence, a confidence enough not to use that as a place to be to stay in that dark place. I use that alcohol and drugs and all the other things to drown me out of feeling. You know what I'm saying? Of being stayed in that dark space. That tunnel vision. So I celebrate my wins. So that's my last thing. That's my last thing. I want to just tell the brothers, like, um, being confident, like I know Robert said, it's intentionality, and you won't get it unless you be grace. Give yourself grace and surround yourself with people that's willing to give yourself grace too, because you're not going to get it right the first time. But
Yeah.
that's it. I'm ranting.
Oh no,
That's
you're
look,
not.
look,
Let
and
me tell you,
yeah.
I think I feel that the way that Robert is, all right, that he has to be intentional. But the reason why he is so bold to tell you where, when, how, all that, um, is really so it's so important to be transparent with men because it is believed that men better not show emotion.
Oh,
It is
absolutely not.
it is believed that men would, people would question your manhood, you know? And so I believe he had to be intentional with his story, because his story, and I know he didn't probably, he didn't touch on it, but if you know him, you follow him, you know what his story is. He had 8 abusers, and
And look,
most of them were in the church.
and super. Let me tell you this. I'm sorry. Thank you, Holy
That's
Ghost. I have to
okay.
just say this: the boldness that comes from this man,
Yes.
the boldness that comes from this man when he's telling this story. When we wrote our book, Echoes, I was right outside my mom's door, and I was in the car struggling because he wanted me to go over it on my phone with him, and I'm like, and he's like, I need you to share every detail. I'm like, every detail. And honestly, the truth is, trauma has a way. There's a study. Trauma has a way of making you forget, like you guys were talking about earlier. And some things come to mind when a certain person comes through. Maybe a smell, maybe something you're reading. It could trigger for you to come for those things to come back. I didn't remember half the abuses that I had back then.
Mm.
I was trying to, and what I gave him, I barely gave him anything. But what happened was through therapy, through God, and through hearing him share his story boldly, he was one of the first people I know. He didn't just say I was abused. Robert intentionally told the details. That's what I think that was the breaking point of me becoming better and other people becoming better, and why I knew this was going to be a difference in this movement. Because if you go to share the detail, people can say, okay, you say, okay, something happened to me, right? But then when you get more detail and say, no, I've been abused, I've been molested, I've been raped, especially as a man and as a black man, like he wasn't afraid to say that. And I had situations when I've shared that, people like, you've been raped, you was molested, like as if like I'm too strong or I'm too old or I could have avoided it or I didn't fight back. He said it to us plenty of times until we produced the book and to the day and even now that I want you guys to look. So when you read, I'm just letting y'all know ahead of time. It's
I've already read it.
all right. Well, I'm just it's people like I want to read this in Bible in church, but I was like, okay, you can, but it's the unapologetic stories of male survivors. It's told exactly how they felt and what they were feeling in the moment.
But tell the viewers how much freer you are now
I-
that all that has been laid
let
out
me
on the
let me say
table.
this. Even though it's an ongoing journey to
That's right.
gaining my confidence,
Right.
I can truly say that I've forgiven myself. That's the biggest part.
Mm.
I often say this because I deal with suicide ideation and cutting myself and depression. A lot of that stemmed from me holding in guilt trips, basically. What's crazy is most people forgive themselves first, or maybe not. I was able to basically forgive myself, the predators and the people that victimized me before I forgave myself.
Mm.
That was the hardest thing. But as I forgave myself, it's giving me room to grow, to get to know myself, to what I like to do for fun. Who am I? It's giving me a boldness, like, and, a boldness to say this, like, even when I don't know how it's going to turn out,
That's right.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
Mm.
I'm gonna do it scared. I'm gonna do it not knowing. I'm gonna do it not. This is the hardest part I'm dealing with in my life right now. Being confident enough to do it anyway, even when fear's in the way. Because a lot of us men need to know all the details sometimes. Like I need to know how this gonna work, how this gonna play out, how this gonna end, if I'm gonna go for it. But now I'm looking at it like, God, if you're gonna have me go for it, I don't need to know all the details. I don't need all the people that's involved. I'm confident enough to know, you know what, even when I don't know better, you know better.
Mm.
Like right now, I'm not in a dark place. That's not true. I'm in a place in which I never thought I had to go back to get my healing. Because this is the place where all the molestation, the beating, all that stuff happened. I never thought that God would take me back to this place to work everything out and work on my character. I would have never thought I would have came back here. As a matter of fact, I avoided being here. So basically, and so I want to tell the man, you can't heal from something or become better if you're avoiding it. You got to talk about it. You have to find the space. If you don't find the time, it's going to find the time for you. That's the truth.
One thing that Robert has shared on this platform was that there is hardly any support for the man with these types of abuse. And it almost makes it seem like you guys have leprosy to a family member, whether it's to the spouse, and they don't seem to understand that this was your story. And so that's why a lot of men would just take it to the grave with them. But it is important to couple up yourself with a group that that can support you emotionally, and that's why it's also very important that therapy is also your first choice to talk to anyone, to confide in anyone. We all are victims of sexual assault, but we all did not do it without therapy. And so just know that we are living testaments of God's working will in us, and that it's not against the Lord to get therapy.
Thank. Can you please say it again? Because
It's n-
people hate that. People hate
it's
hearing that.
not against the Lord, the living God. He is not against therapy.
Thank you.
If anything, what does the Bible say that everything good comes from God?
That's good. Because here's the thing: is if you having a ache with your teeth and you need legal counsel and advice, you're gonna
Hmm.
go to a lawyer. If you dealing with something within your teeth and wisdom teeth, you're hurting. Well, I will hope you do. Hope you wouldn't
You
wait.
would go to a
You're gonna go
dentist.
to a dentist,
That's right.
orthodontist, right?
That's
And
right.
just like therapists has helped break those barriers down that I didn't know was there. I'm like, oh, I can heal from that now. Now, since I know it was hurting me, you
That's
know.
right.
And thank you, Yvonne and Nettie, for being these ambitious, strong women. Because oftentimes we like, man, like I want to share with the women, but I
Yeah,
don't. I will feel weak. No, seriously, we
I get.
feel because y'all feel like that amongst in general, and then we may feel that way. But it's
Mhm.
just like, thank y'all for being examples. And let me say, women have been some of the big supporters. And
Yes.
oftentimes in our conversations, women end up leading a conversation in order for men to start being safe. Like they hear a woman say something in these meetings or these events, and then they like, you know what? I feel safe enough now because they have allowed me that safe space, so I'm gonna speak up. So I thank you guys for allowing men to come on here and pour out and be vulnerable. We don't that doesn't it doesn't happen often among not just women and black and back and forth, but also man to man. You know. So
Mhm.
thank you guys for having this to be able to allow us to be able to talk about this stuff.
Well, I know Yvonne is just, almost falling off her
She's
seat. So let her.
amazing, by the way. She's amazing. Her
She
energy
really
is
is her
her energy is like she this is a perfect match for you. Like you guys, for real, seriously. Like she's been on it.
energy. She
I'm like,
is a
man.
great
And
help.
sometimes these conversations get dark and
Yeah.
weird, because it's a hard conversation. But it's like the fact that you guys made it joyous to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like it drained me after I had a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
thank y'all for that. I mean, this has been good.
Thank you so much. I know if you have to jump off, go ahead. You can. But go ahead, girl. What you got to say to him?
Woo! I so enjoyed you.
Yeah.
Another sheet. I put it on everybody's bio, and on their sheet, I took my notes. Here go another sheet with notes. You, the fact that so many people have asked the victim, why? Why didn't you say anything? Why did you wait so long? Why? And that's why. That's a part of the why, because of the response that we get from
Th-
others when we do come out. You're
Thank you.
asking me
Thank
why,
you.
not the perpetrator. You're asking me why did I do this? Did I go here? Did I not say this? But no one's asking the perpetrator anything.
And
No
what do you
one's
do with
having
that?
any question to him or her. But you're coming at me asking me why. That stood out in my mind. When you said walking with faith, my God. Not just giving advice. That's what it was. Not just giving advice, but walking with the person makes a difference. We can stand on the street corner and give advice all day long. I can sit in my kitchen and call on the phone and give advice all day long. I can write on a piece of paper, here, take this. This is advice. But the hard part comes in when you walk with that person who's going through what they're going through. When they call you in the middle of the night, when they have
Oh
tears
gosh,
and,
yes.
and, and they want to talk, but don't even know how to talk, when they just looking over at you and they don't know how to begin a conversation, and all you do is you go and sit there with them. You don't engage, you don't say anything, but you begin to understand what it is that they need simply by them just being there. When they look over at you and they don't ask you, and you don't take over the conversation, you don't begin telling your life story, but you sit there.
Oh, you preaching.
Even in silence, you walk with them. Even if you're not saying anything, just sitting beside them is walking with them, because it tells them, you believe me, you have strengthened me. The other thing was the fact that you said somebody believed you, and that's what happened with me. The young lady, we went to the place where after you've been assaulted, you go to the hospital and you get examined, and it was someone from the rape crisis center. And as I'm disrobing and the grass fell from my clothes, I said, see, it really did happen. She was on the other side of the room. She walked from one side of the room to the other and looked me in my eye. And that's what I do every chance I get. She said, baby, I believed you when you first said it. I didn't know that woman from a can of paint. In fact, she was, in my opinion, I was 14. She was about 50. To me, she was an old white woman that I had never seen or known before. And for somebody that not of my race, not of somebody that I knew, could look at me and make me feel the way I felt. And I left that room that day saying, I want to do for somebody else what Dorothy did for me. Another thing that you said about celebrate your progress, celebrate your wins. It reminds you of how far you've come. You're not being arrogant. You're not being stuck up. You're not being saying, hey, yo, it's me. You're celebrating yourself. We celebrate everybody else. We celebrate birthdays. We celebrate, they even now have divorce parties. We celebrate them. We celebrate the fact that my toenails are different color. We celebrate all of that. Celebrate you. Learn to celebrate you. It allows you to see the progress that we've made, how far we've come. Forgive yourself. Ooh, as we have said before, that's probably one of the hardest things, to forgive yourself. Not that you thought you had a role in what happened. That's not what I mean when I say forgive myself. But I had to forgive myself of the guilt that I wore for so long. I had to forgive myself of what I felt was holding on to something that was never my fault. I had to forgive me before I could forgive anybody else. It's been good. And I made a note, get the book. I wrote that in bold letters, get the book. Maybe I gotta give it to you. I got to get the book, find out the information for the book. And how you perceive by church. This is last. How you perceive by church folk. Been born and raised in the church all my life. All I know is church. Pentecostal. Mama was there. Grandmama was there. But sometime in the church, that's one of the hardest places to reveal, to release, to let go. Oh, you would think that's the place. That should be the first place. Some of those that are behind the pews, some of those that are in the pulpit have been affected by this same trauma. And we know it because it comes out in what they say. We know
I've had brothers call me.
Their actions. We know that they've been abused, even if they never say it. Their actions say it. Your abuse speaks volumes. It comes out, as Nettie and I said earlier. What's in you will come out. So the fact that sometimes the church isn't so accepting. And of all things, we got the earring ministry, we got the eyelash ministry, we got the grow your hair ministry, we got the you want a big butt ministry, we got all those ministries. But where's the ministry that's addressing the hurt that we're going through? I tell you, I could go on and on.
Yeah, you can. Go ahead, Daquan. You was about to say something. Daquan, you was about to say, I had a brother call you.
No, it was great. I love this, but I love the fact that you said everything is not gonna. I hate to keep reverting it about to me because this is really not about me. This is about us in totality. But I've been telling my friends recently, like, I know that I've made mistakes. I know that I'm going through this transition, and I wouldn't be telling you that I need it. I wouldn't talk to you about my situation if I wasn't asking for your advice. But in moments, advice or being there is simply listening. For all those that are trying to you can't force someone into healing. You got to do it by love. You got to do it by love. It was the same thing concerning church. A lot of times we want to force people into forcing them and dictating what they do and calling them out in such the harshest way. God draws people by love and kindness. You have to do the same thing. Someone asked at one of our events, they say, well, I'm trying to get him to get help and he don't want to do it. And I'm tired of Well, there it is already. He's already been beaten up by the world and beaten up by his choices he's made because he was abused. Now he's trying to deal with the past, also try to make a future for himself. And then he has someone that he loves. Instead of dictating everything he does, what you could do is just simply listen. You have to love someone into someone loved me enough into the to the Daquan I am now. You know, you can't force someone into healing. You got to just love them and present the resources to them. If I say right now, if Nettie or Yvonne, if y'all wasn't survivors and y'all, you know, we weren't in this place, you better get help. What are you doing? And I keep telling you, and you gonna just keep walking around like, what is what is that does? Your confidence is already shocked already.
That's
That person, and here's the thing is, you can't teach someone anything if you don't love them. No one's gonna listen, and it's the way you say it. It's the way
right.
the way you talk to them, present yourself, and also you speak about the church. I love the church. Let me make because last time I did a podcast, and someone was just like, "You talked about look, I'm a man of God. I love the church and ministry." What I'm saying is that a lot of times we we can't deal with something again if you're not willing to talk about it, right? Some of us even it's hard to accept in the first place. But I've had older men that I look up to and in different places I'll say because I won't say where, but and that I look up to within the churches. Oh, I see what you're doing, and you know what? I love it, and you know what? I appreciate you doing it because you know what? I'll probably never say anything.
Mm.
That broke my heart. People I look up to, people I talk to all the time, and they're like, you know what? I'm living vicariously through you because I ain't bold enough to say that.
Mm.
I've had the church treat me bad, and you know what? Or I've had this person treat me bad, and you know what? I'm just not willing to risk it. That hurts. So when people say, oh, you just need God, we don't need therapy. We need we need help to reveal those things to be able to reveal those broken things that we're not able to discuss any other place. So I'm appreciative in this moment that I have a pastor that believes in therapy and God.
Oof.
And that's when I know I'm in the right place. Not only the brothers I'm connected to, but that he speaks boldly on how they work collectively together. You know, so yeah, but that hurts just to see people say, I'll never speak up. I'll never speak up. I can't do it. I can't trust people enough to be able to do that. So what you guys doing is amazing. I keep saying that, and I know it sounds repetitive,
Amen.
but people sometimes are living through this because they'll never say anything.
Mhm.
All right, well, you know what, Nettie is saying something, Ivana, you know what, at least I know there's some people that is also going through it or understand what I feel. But that's it. I had someone say, I'm gonna just die with this thing. What do you say to that person?
Mm.
I didn't know what to say, and especially being a counterpart or a person that's older than me. What do you
Mhm.
speak to? What do you say to that? How do you get someone to say to say how can I override all the brokenness and be like, you know what? I know they hurt you, but you should forgive anyway, or you should go for it anyway.
So
It,
my thing with forgiveness, right? Because I never want to make someone feel that they have to, right?
absolutely, yeah,
But the benefits, the
absolutely.
benefits
The benefits
of
of
what
healing,
happens
of forgiveness,
health wise, it
absolutely,
has been proven it's been proven that you'll live a longer life, that you'll reverse some of the, you know what I mean, things that the body these days are trying to attack to
absolutely.
your body. Like, having a positive outlook on things are also beneficial to you. So why, the forgiveness part is just for you to
Hmm.
be able to heal from, so that your healing journey, you know, could be successful. But I don't like to make people feel that. To me, forgiveness is going to come when the person is better, when a person starts feeling better about themselves, because they hate all of the world, you know what I mean, and all of themselves at the same time. So you have, everything is done in layers, and I feel
I
as
like
though
that.
I feel as though the person who did the abuse should be concerned about forgiveness. They need to be concerned about forgiveness because I feel like that's not my cup. You and God have to deal with each other. You got to go to God. But I'm going to forgive myself. I'm having a hard time forgiving you. But as I get better, I believe that forgiveness comes full circle with your enemies. You'll end up forgiving your enemies. It's just done in layers. I don't feel like pushing it on to someone until God has been able to deal with them internally. And it has to, because whatever God does in us and that we receive from God, we're going to do the right thing. We'll do the right thing. But I couldn't make my daughters forgive, who they call dad. I just couldn't make them do that when they were ready. You know what I mean? That was their cup, and that was between them and God. Like, I couldn't force nothing on them. So forgiveness, it's also for the perpetrator. You know what I mean? Like, they have to deal with forgiveness on their part with God. So I'm gonna leave him. I'm gonna leave that to them. I'm gonna leave that to them. And then when I'm better, when I'm whole, and I can forgive what you have done, then that's when it happens. But I'm not gonna tell somebody, well, you have to forgive, because if you don't forgive, God's not gonna forgive you. Yes,
And
that's scriptural. Yes, that's biblical. But at the same time, um, you just gotta work on you in order for you to understand the full circle of forgiveness.
I got a scripture to back you up on that, right? Because
Okay.
again, like you said, it's always about people like. That's why I love too that it's like you have to love someone into that moment, right?
Yeah.
So the Bible says, "One man planteth, one waters, and God gives the increase." I
Mm,
believe if you love someone and you pour into them and you constantly talk to them and you feed those positive things into them,
right.
and that process will happen. But if a person is all they
Right.
know is hurt, all they've known is abuse, all they've known is neglect, it's gonna be hard for you to. Now, get me wrong. It's not that you can't speak to forgiveness, but
That's
you
right.
can't force them to forgive.
That's right.
You know,
You can't. And that kind of goes to the question that you asked: how do you get somebody to, what did you say that?
I was saying, like, a lot of times I know what to say, but sometimes it's a struggle because you say, hey, well, how do I, well, better words is how the words to use to lead them to forgiveness, to lead
Mm,
them to say, and like, but you answered, of course, as we were
yeah.
talking about earlier, and like,
Okay. Got it. I got it.
yeah,
If I
yeah.
can
Um.
just chime in just for
Yeah.
a moment with that forgiveness piece.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a process. And
Oh, yes.
that's what we've got to understand. And when
Mhm.
people understand what forgiveness means, so
Right.
many people feel like forgiveness means I've got to be reunited with that person, or I've got to take that person back in, or I've got to be chummy with that person again. Or
Right.
no, forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself.
Mm,
Forgiveness says you no longer have the power and authority over me. Forgiveness says that I will not allow the things that you said and done to take me to a certain place. Forgiveness allows me the freedom to live.
Woo.
That's what
the
forgiveness
freedom
does.
to look,
Because
y'all talking
until
good.
I'm able to forgive somebody else, it stunts my growth. It stunts my ability because I'm constantly thinking about what they did and how they hurt me and this. So when we come to understand what forgiveness is, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Somebody think that forgiveness is, and they had a scriptural support. I forget just what it was. That forgive and forget. No, if I forget, then have I gone crazy? Do I have amnesia? Does that part of my mind just sort of just in my head just disappear? No, I didn't forget. I remember. And that's what forgiveness is, being able to remember and know what happened, but being able to rise above it, not allowing it to suck the life out of you. You
Absolutely.
don't forget. How can I forget standing on the corner 22nd and Cambria or having been raped for the second time? How do I forget that? If I've forgotten that, then I don't need to forgive of that because I don't even remember that anymore. But forgiveness does not give your perpetrator a free slate. It doesn't give them a free card. Oh, they forgive me so I can walk off. So many people have challenges with being able to forgive because they don't understand what forgiveness is. And Nettie, I love the way you said it. I think the way in which to present forgiveness is to show them the benefits.
That
Show
one
them
thing good.
how they will benefit from receiving. Don't even incorporate the perpetrator. Leave them out. This is about you, your health, your safety, your well-being. These are the benefits of forgiveness for you. For you, they got to deal with what they did. They've got to come to grips
That's right.
with what they did. But forgiveness is
Come
a
on.
gift that you give yourself, and it does not mean that I've forgotten, because I haven't. I ain't. At the age of 8, I ain't forgot it. At the age of 12, I ain't forgot it. And I
Right.
remember, I've got to remember it so that I can share my story with somebody else in the
Mhm.
hopes and prayers that they don't have to go through what I went through. So I didn't forget it, but I
And
made
that's
sure.
Yeah.
why it was powerful what Nettie said. It's like teaching on the benefits of why forgiveness is good instead of trying to get someone to
Mhm.
force them into forgiveness.
Mhm.
Talk about what it's going to do for you. Talk about where it can lead you to.
Mhm.
So man, that's y'all. And then Yvonne, I'm writing down those too. You said forgiveness gives me the freedom. Forgiveness gives me the freedom to live.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
oh, mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, you could just we can end there. Girl, I thank you. You made this so fun and so easy. Like, Daquan, thank you so much for confidence. I knew you was gonna have that in the bucket.
Look,
Um,
I'm going by day.
I know
Y'all
it.
help me.
But look how much you've accomplished just with confidence. Look how much you accomplished with um what do you call that? With being intentional, you know what I mean? Look how much self-control you used, you know? You could have been your old self like you said. The triggers could have gotten me back to my old self, but God, how you use self-control and didn't go back to having that last, that next drink. You did that. You're using self control. I think these words were so God ordained. You have no idea.
It
And the
was.
fact that you can walk out in peace. You've been peaceful, even though you're going through a whole lot. You know how to. You know how
That's
to
the strangest
sleep.
thing. I never thought I would have so much peace right now. I honestly,
Right.
I know we're supposed
Right.
to. I never thought I would come back and feel. I have been at
Come
this much
on.
peace in years.
But the scripture
Because you
said,
know
my
you're
peace I give
worthy.
you, my peace. What is it? I always get it mixed up. When Jesus said, my peace I give to you,
To you.
my peace I leave with you, not like the peace of the world, because the world can't understand. You've been assaulted, you've been raped, and you got peace. You still love God. They don't understand, but the peace that God gives us surpasses man's understanding. That's
Come
why we're
on.
able to share in the manner that we do, because of the peace that we've been able to obtain. Oh, God.
Hmm. This conference was not a mistake, and it wasn't to highlight the trauma.
Thank you. I love that you gave these words and like you said acronyms and all these things. And it didn't solely we're talking about how bad the trauma was, but
Hmm.
talking about where we're trying to go
Right.
and where we're at. I
And
thought that
how
was
it's a
great.
process.
Hmm.
We're all going through a process. We haven't
Absolutely.
arrived. We will never arrive. Okay. God,
That's
God is
true.
not through with us yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much more that I have to, realize that he's pulling out of me. And even though I might try to think I'm not there. I was just having a conversation with someone saying, yeah, I don't think I'm there yet. But then I realized today, you know what? All right, God, I got you. I got you. I got
Hey, that's what y'all did for me. I had no idea that even though I was saying all those things and I think those things are true, I know those things to be true. I I sometimes question my progress. I do. And then talking to you guys, I'm like, you know what?
you. Hmm.
I think I'm doing much better than I was. And that counts for something.
Ooh, that's a win.
That's a
That's a
win. It's still a win.
win-win.
And I
I'll take
question
it.
not only my progress, but then I begin to question my influence or my help on others. Am I really making a difference? Is anybody even listening? Does anybody care? Look how many times you've told your story. Aren't they bored by now? They could probably, as you begin to speak, could probably tell your story as well as you can because you've told it so many times.
So many.
It causes you. But I believe that every time I tell it, it'll hit somebody differently, and somebody else will
What?
be strengthened by it.
Man, I gotta
Amen.
reject some of those thoughts, Yvonne.
Yeah.
I
But
gotta reject some of them thoughts.
that's great. And I know we're trying to end it, but it's just like
Nah,
that's why
every
I said
time you're
intention.
on, that's why we ended up doing a 3 hour
Look,
special on my anniversary, which is next month, by the way. You're
look,
gonna come
that's
back on as a guest, I hope.
I am. That's why it's
Okay.
intentionally intentionally have to. And it's crazy. I just said that and didn't realize I said I was. I was like, okay. But no, look, I'm always willing, and it's like that's why you have to intentionally tell yourself, like,
Yeah.
sometimes when we go to these events, and it gives you relief, but also
Yeah.
it drains you at a certain aspect of telling this, and you wonder something. You do wonder sometimes. You like some people receive it, some people buckle up against it. The last one we went to, people we had a church when we did it, and they did not like the forgiveness part. And you wonder, like anybody listening, like, is it
It's
helping
true.
anybody?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys.
Mm-hmm. Like I'll
Gotta
have some impulses here, man. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna see how many people tuned in. How many people? Like I'm already gonna have some impulses, so I'm gonna exercise some self control.
look. You did what God ordained you to do, and for you did what God
That's
ordained you to do. So honestly, when you follow that, you can't lose.
amen.
All the other stuff gonna follow after that.
Woo. All right then, I, Yvonne, you got anything?
I'm good. I'm going to get some meat. I'm hungry right now. I'm
We
going to
did
get
do
me
this
some
at lunchtime,
chicken.
didn't we? Oh
Me
Lord.
too.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess I'll see you.
I hope to be able to share the platform with you at another time or space, so that our spaces will cross again. Daquan, Nettie, we got to do this again.
Oh,
Yeah. Well.
can Yvonne or Nettie, one of you guys feel like praying us out? I think it's important that
Well,
we
that's
pray.
gonna be her. Come on, I'm gonna let you that. Yes.
Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we come before you at the close of this session, God, to give you
Yes,
the
Lord.
glory,
Thank
the
you,
honor,
Jesus.
and the praise.
Thank you,
God, we
Lord.
come asking nothing of you on this evening, oh God, but instead we lift up the name of the Almighty, oh God. We
Thank you,
trust and we believe beyond a shadow of a
Hallelujah.
doubt, oh God, that the words that have been spoken on this evening, oh God, have touched the hearts and minds and souls of somebody. God, that somebody walks away with the realization of knowing that it was not my fault, in Jesus' name, my God. And although the conference has been about the perpetrator, about the sexual assault survivor, and how we've been able to rise above, but God, on this evening, I pray, my God, for every
Jesus.
perpetrator in the name of Jesus, oh God, I pray, my God, that they've come to know you in a better way, oh God. For if there are no perpetrators, oh God, then we don't have to worry about any victims, oh God. We pray for platforms like this, God, all over the world in the
Oh,
name of
yes.
Jesus, oh God. But first and foremost, oh God, in your house, oh God, let the preacher man, let the pastor, let the bishop, let the church leaders, oh God, open their doors wide,
Yeah.
my God, and allow platforms such as this, oh God, because in their pews, oh God, behind the pulpit, oh God, on the usher stand, God, in the choir stand, God, oh God, there's some folk that's hurting, oh God, there's some folk that are bleeding from the inside. But God, I thank you for Nettie, and I thank you for each of the individuals that have been a part of this forum, a part of this setting, a part of this gathering, God. And I thank you for the hearts and minds and souls that have been touched, oh God. I pray that every time it's replayed, oh God, every time it's replayed, that those that are getting on
Mercy.
the
Replay. Yes, Lord.
to the very presence of the Almighty. God, it is done. Healing, my God, is the journey, but my God, wholeness is the destination. And for this, we thank you. To God, we thank you in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the blessed Holy Ghost. God, we say amen. Thank you.
Amen.
All right.
I love y'all.
I
Thank
love
you.
you. That concludes
Thank you.
our conference.
Be blessed. We love you.
Till next year. What's the word for today?